Hello guys, welcome to my channel The Wandering Zoro, your go-to destination for anime-related content. And if you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out on our latest videos. In today's video, we're going to be diving into part 1 of the series, so be sure to stick around until the end, and let's get started. Sorry kid, it's not going to happen, the doctor said. If you had a quirk, it would have shown itself by now. What do you mean? My mom asked. The doctor pointed to an x-ray of my foot. After the emergence of quirks, there were studies done. It was found that most people with a quirk lack this joint right here. It's possible for someone to have the joint and a quirk regardless. But if Izuku here hasn't developed a quirk at this age, it probably means he doesn't have one. After that, I was crushed. The one thing that I wanted most was to be a hero, and now that dream seemed completely out of reach. How could I become a hero without a quirk? I never completely gave up, but after a while, it just seemed so hard. It was around this time that I really started to get into video games. In them, I could be the hero. I was always the hero. I saved the day, stopped the bad guys, and had all kinds of cool powers. Maybe that was what kept me going. At any rate, I eventually redoubled my efforts to become a hero and began analyzing everything I possibly could about heroes. I watched hundreds of videos of fights between heroes and villains in all kinds of environments. I want to see every hero fight I could. I learned enough that I could theoretically be certified a quirk counselor if I took the exam. Still, I always had some doubt as to whether or not I could do it. If there was ever a hero without a quirk, they never made it big enough to even be mentioned. Everyone at school laughed at me for saying I wanted to be a hero. But that all changed the day my quirk awakened. I woke up feeling odd, but couldn't quite place why. It only hit me when I was brushing my teeth. When I was just about done, I noticed something weird above my head in the mirror. I looked up and immediately spat out my toothpaste when I saw white text floating above my head. It might have been reversed, but I could read it clear as day. The Gamer. LV5. Midoriya. Izuku. I had no idea what to make of it. Why is there a text box floating over my head? I thought. And what's with that part that says the gamer? I might have stayed there, staring like a deer in headlights at my own reflection, for hours if my mom hadn't called up to me. Izuku, hurry up or you'll be late for school. That snapped me out of my reverie. Whatever was could probably wait until I was at school. Coming. I yelled back down and then hurriedly finished getting ready. When I went downstairs, she was waiting for me with my lunch. After she gave it to me along with a hug and a kiss, I looked above her head. Supermom. LV11. Midoriya Inko. So it wasn't just me. It seemed to me like she couldn't see the words, considering the fact that she hadn't reacted at all. Still, better to be safe than sorry. Hey, Mom? Yes, Izuku? Have you noticed anything strange today? No, why do you ask? I thought something was off. I guess I just stayed up a little too late last night. She narrowed her eyes at me. Don't worry, though. I'm fine now. That confirmed that she couldn't see the text floating above our heads. Satisfied, I headed out the door. On the way to school, I saw that everyone had a title above their heads. It's just like a video game, I thought. I stopped for a second as a thought struck me, then continued as I thought about it. Could this be a quirk? What if that's the reason? It'd explain why only I can see these titles. The doctor did say that it was possible I had a quirk, just not likely. But why now? Why wouldn't my quirk have shown up earlier? I was so distracted that I didn't even notice the crowd until I walked into someone's back. After apologizing, I followed everyone's gaze to see a giant, monstrous man standing on the overpass. Giant Monster Man. LV32. Yamazaki, Riku. Guy gets cornered by heroes and just turns into a giant monster, a nearby man said, as if it was a common occurrence. I made my way through the crowd toward the front. When I did, a bunch of fangirls squealed as a guy who looked like a cross between a ninja and a tree kicked the giant in the face. It's Kamui Woods, I said. I squinted and just barely made out his title while he monologued at the villain. LV? Nishiya Shinji. Huh. I figured that the titles had some limitations to it. My assumption was immediately given some credit when a giant woman kicked the giant villain in the jaw while he was distracted with Kamui Woods' special attack. LV? Takayama Yu. MT lady, huh? The guy next to me said. She's certainly making a name for herself. Seems like she might make it big. Yeah, I muttered. She's certainly got a good quirk for hero work. Plenty of power, and flashy too. I could see a few downsides, though. She can't use it in tight spaces, and being that big would definitely cause a lot of collateral damage. I was interrupted by a ping. I looked down to see. A blue text box? A new skill has been created through special action. Continuously analyzing your surroundings has created the skill Observe to gain information about objects. Observe active LV1 EXP 0%. The ability to observe one's surroundings and gain information from it gives the user information about the object it is used on. Yet again, all I could do is gape at what I saw. A skill. So this wasn't just identifying people. I don't know how I immediately knew how to use it, but I did. Observe, I thought while looking at the text box for the Observe skill, and a new text box popped up. The text box for the Observe skill shows the effects and experience of the Observe skill. I probably would have played around with this more, but the man next to me cleared his throat and said, "Hey kid, are you okay?" "Oh, I'm fine," I blurted out. "You look pretty distracted there. Something happened?" he asked. "Don't worry about it," I replied. "My quirk's just a little weird. I was just using it as an excuse, but it had to have been my quirk. There was no other explanation for it. I decided that I'd explore this new quirk as best I could when I got to school. Wait, I have to get to school, I realized and ran for it. Once I made it to my homeroom, I immediately collapsed into my chair, panting. I looked at the text boxes that had appeared on the run to my school. The level of the skill Observe has increased by 1. The level of the skill Observe has increased by 1. Those in a bunch of Observe text boxes made up most of them. I saw the LV1 on Observe's text box and inferred that I could probably raise the level of the skill by using it a bunch. Naturally, I spammed it at every item I could on the run over. However, there were two that I hadn't expected. Due to repeated struggles, your VIT has increased by 1. Due to prolonged running, your DEX is increased by 1. Well, that was interesting. I suppose it made sense. I may have gained some weird video game power, but I was still in real life. Supposedly. So I was still able to exercise. I wondered what my stats were, then had an idea. I concentrated, then thought the word menu to myself, just like when I used Observe. It didn't surprise me, then, when a menu popped up. Status screen, skill list, inventory, party options, map, quest log, options. Well, that seemed interesting. I decided to start at the top and make my way down. Status screen. Name, Midoriya Izuku. Title, The Gamer. Level 5. HP, 250 of 250. MP, 275 of 275. Strength, 10. Vitality, 11. Dexterity, 11. Intelligence, 30. Wisdom, 10. Luck, 10. Points, 0. Money, 0 yen. What? I got most of my stats, but why would a level 5 character have 20 more points in INT than in the other stats? I guess that explained why I didn't start at level 1, but maybe I got 5 stats per level after 1, and my quirk automatically dumped those into INT because of my above average IQ? I guess that made sense, but I really wished it hadn't. I could have probably used those points better myself. Quirk. Still, I decided that I'd have to train out my stats the hard way at first. I can probably focus on INT, WIS, and LUC during school hours. Studying and doing math problems should probably increase my INT. Maybe I could increase my WIS by meditating, and if I constantly flip a coin and call it that, it'd probably increase LUC. As for out of school, I said I was going to UE, so nobody would think twice about me exercising like crazy. Actually, why haven't I done that already? Exercise like crazy is half of what made Batman Batman. So why did it take me this long to figure out that I should do that? I then noticed another text box. Due to planning things carefully, your WIS is increased by 1. That's probably what led to me questioning my previous actions. I would have thought about that further, but I was interrupted again by someone saying my name. Midoriya-kun is also planning on going to UE. Oh no. What? DKU? Kakin went over to my desk and started burning my desk with tiny explosions. I got a good look at his name. Lord Explosion Murder. LV-14. Bakugo Katsuki. That title was really accurate. You don't even have a quirk, you shitty DKU. You're just a disgrace. Kakin. I sighed. I was surprisingly calm, considering the fact that an explosive blonde was shouting in my face. I guess I was just really distracted by the whole "I have a quirk now" thing. You can't stop me from going to Yui, no matter what you do. Actually, I thought, while he's in my face like this. Observe. Name, Bakugo Katsuki. Title, Lord Explosion Murder. Level, 14. HP, 800 of 800. MP, 725 for 725. Strength, 27. Vitality, 25. Dexterity, 35. Intelligence, 29. Wisdom, 13. Luck, 13. Quirk, Explosion. Emotions, angry, worried. That last one didn't seem right. Shitty DEKU. I'll murder you. Bakugo, calm down. The teacher said, remember, you're not supposed to use your quirk in school. I don't think that getting a detention will look very good to Yui. Fine. I'm just going to glare at him. Please limit yourself to that. That isn't against the rules and doesn't cause a disturbance. Maybe I will. Wow, Kakin is high-strung. I sighed as he plopped back into his seat and started glaring at me. With that threat out of the way, I decided to test my new training regimen. On the walk home from school, I decided to review what I'd done at school. After Bakugo's outburst, I decided to try out meditation, which yielded quite the fruit. A skill has been created through special action. Through repeated meditation, the skill meditation has been created. Meditation active LV 2 EXP 61.23%. By clearing one's mind, the mind becomes much sharper. This skill allows the user to meditate on the mysteries of life, the universe, and everything for enlightenment. Increase HP recovery per minute by WIS while meditating. Increase MP recovery per minute by WIS while meditating. Increase stamina recovery per minute by WIS while meditating. WIS can be trained through meditation. Through repeated meditation, your WIS has increased by 1. I also found a 500 yen coin during lunch and started flipping it as I planned. Just like I'd thought, calling it right enough times had increased my LUC. Due to repeatedly winning games of chance, your LUC has increased by 1. I should probably focus on VIT and DX, and especially DX. Even if I can shrug off getting punched by a truck and hit with the same amount of force, there's going to be some attacks that I can only dodge. I would have done some more planning, but I was interrupted by a weird feeling and a ping. I was excited to see what this new text box would bring me until a new skill has been created through special action. Through exposure to impending doom, the skill Sense Danger has been created. I had about a second to think, well, that is the second most ominous thing I've ever seen. Before a manhole burst with some form of sludge. The sludge consolidated into a single blob that somehow had eyes and a mouth with teeth. Sludge Monster. LV-26. Kurosawa Show. I stared at the pile of sludge in front of me. Well, kid, seems like you were in the wrong place at the wrong time. Unfortunately for you, I need a disguise. Ping. I looked at the new text box. A new skill has been created through special action. Repeated exposure to bloodthirst has created the skill Sense Bloodthirst to sense ill will. Yeah, no thanks. I jumped out of the way as he lunged at me. Observe. Name, Kurosawa Show. Title, Sludge Monster. Level, 26. HP, 1,600 of 1,600. MP, 500 of 500. Strength, 30. Vitality, 39. Dexterity, 34. Intelligence, 16. Wisdom, 6. Luck, 6. Quirk, Sludge Body. Emotions, grateful, bloodthirsty. Status, Sludge Body. Itadakamasu. The slime said as part of his body shot out and stuck to my ankle. I gasped and quickly bent down to try and tear him off of me before he could do anything more to me. Unfortunately, my fingers slipped through him with little resistance. Get over here, he yelled, and I was yanked into him. As I was painfully dragged across the ground, I heard a ping, but I was a little too distracted by the sludge villain trying to eat me or something. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get away from him before he submerged me in himself and started trying to force himself down my throat. It was at this moment that I noticed something in the corner of my eye that I could somehow see perfectly fine. HP 184 out of 250. MP 275 of 275. And the HP was slowly going down as I struggled with the Sludge villain. That was not a good sign. I struggled harder, but I couldn't get out. I thought I was going to die there. I heard another ping and looked up, hoping it was something I could use. A new skill has been created through special action. Through repeatedly enduring damage, the skill Physical Endurance has been created. Due to struggling while unable to breathe, your VIT has raised by 1. Oh no! Normally that would be good, but I couldn't use them to escape. My HP was still draining, and my vision was starting to go dark. Am I going to die here? I thought. Just before I blacked out, though, I heard something. Texas smash. When I came to, someone was lightly slapping me on the cheek. Hey, wake up, a familiar voice said. I groaned and looked up to see. Phew, thought we lost you there. LV? Toshinori Yagi. The name wasn't familiar, but there was no mistaking who the large, muscled, blond man was. All Might. I scrambled to my feet, now aware that I had been rescued by my idol. Can I have your autograph? He grinned and pointed at my hero analysis notebook, which must have slipped out of my backpack during the struggle. I opened it to the All Might page and beamed at the autograph that he'd written on it. Thank you. Good to hear it, kid. Always great to see a fan. No affidant me have to goddern this villain. He rushed out that last part while pointing to 2 soda bottles that the villain was stuffed in and then jumped away. Of course by then. What are you doing, kid? Let go. I had stupidly grabbed onto his leg. If I let go, I'll die. I yelled back over the wind. Good point, he said. He landed on a nearby roof and let me off. I have to go now. Knock on the door and someone should let you down. He made a jump again. Wait. I yelled and closed my eyes. All my life, I've looked up to you. I want to be a hero just like you. But my quirk has only just surfaced. I'm sure it has potential, but it's going to take a lot of training for me to be able to use it as a hero. Even with potential, though, the exams to get into UE are in 10 months. Do you think I can still get into UE? I looked at him for an answer, but what? All Might. LV9. Toshinori Yagi. If it weren't for the title confirming it, I'd have thought that he was a different person. Sure, he was blonde and very tall, but he was almost literally skin and bones. I guess whatever the hell just happened to him to make him a scarecrow was also what lowered his level, but observe. Name, Toshinori Yagi. Title, All Might. Level 9. HP, 500 of 500. MP, 1,100 of 1,100. Strength, 11. Vitality, 4. Dexterity, 19. Intelligence, 52. Wisdom, 35. Luck, 9. Quirk, 1 for all. Emotions, annoyed, concerned. Status, totally messed up. What happened to you, All Might? He sighed, then coughed up. Before I say anything, I need you to promise me you won't say a word of this to anyone. Don't go blabbing about this online. Don't tell your friends. Don't even say anything to your family. Got it? I nodded vigorously. I won't tell anyone. It's obviously a big deal. He sat down and raised up his now baggy shirt, revealing a giant wound on his. Everywhere. That could only be described as totally messed up. It looked like someone took a fusion between a sledgehammer and a blender to his chest. I was in a really bad fight 5 years ago. Took the villain down, but not before getting this ugly thing in return. By all rights, I should have died by now. Luckily, I only got off with constantly coughing up vital fluid and only being able to do hero work 3 hours a day. Toxic Chainsaw couldn't do that, do you? You really know your heroes, huh? No, it was another fight. I made sure nobody would hear about it. Otherwise, there'd have been a lot of panic. Kid, if you want to be a hero, maybe you should wait a bit. Put it off till college or something, when you can actually use your quirk. He got up and left through the door. I just stood there, stunned. Then I saw a giant explosion. That's either a villain or Kaken snapped, I said. I wonder which one. Ping. What's that? A quest has been created. A quest? What now, Kaken? You just saw an explosion. Maybe you should investigate. Time limit, 30 minutes. Well, I had nothing better to do. I looked down to see what I assumed were the rewards. Completion, 2,000 EXP. Failure, Bakugo Katsuki dies. Okay, definitely doing that now. Even if it could be considered vigilante work, I really didn't want Kakin to die. I decided to run for it. When I got there, I saw a crowd of people standing just outside of the safe area. I pushed my way through the crowd to see the Sludge villain from earlier in the middle of a flaming street, struggling with someone who was inside him. Did he get loose when I grabbed on All Might? I thought, is this my fault? I looked at the titles. Sludge Monster, LV-26, Kurosawa Show, Lord Explosion Murder, LV-14, Bakugo Katsuki. It was Kakin in there. Before I knew what was happening, I was running in there. Ping. I looked at the text box. New objective. Save Bakugo. Welp. Looks like I made the right call. I focused back on the Sludge villain in time to see him turning towards me. You came back for some more? Huh, kid? Well, I'll kill you if you want it so badly. The Sludge villain looked like he was about to lunge, so I threw my backpack at his face. He flinched and yelled at me. I ran up to him and started tearing at the sludge around Kakin's face. I heard a ping, but didn't stop to look at it. I managed to get the sludge off of Kakin's mouth. He gasped, coughed a bit, and then yelled, "Get away, Deku! You're gonna die." That was either a death threat, or he was actually concerned about me. Either way, my response was the same. What kind of hero would I be if I let you die? I would have said something else, but my sense danger activated, and I jumped back just in time and not get hit by a gooey punch. "I'll kill you," the Sludge villain yelled. I would have done something, but then I heard a pair of pings. "I'm pathetic. Detroit. Smash." A familiar voice yelled. A rush of air extinguished all of the fires and somehow blew the Sludge villain apart, while leaving Kakin untouched. A few seconds later, it randomly started raining. I looked to where the blast originated and saw All Might standing there. "I'm sorry, boys. What were you thinking? You could have gotten yourself killed." The heroes were not happy. I rushed in there. I didn't really want to pay attention to their lectures, so I just looked at my text boxes. One of them congratulated me on how I made some sort of ripping skill, my tearing the sludge off of Kakin. It didn't look too good, but maybe I could work with it. The other one, though, congratulations. The quest "What Now, Kakin?" was completed. Completion rewards, 2000 EXP, increased closeness with Toshinori Yagi, access to the skill grimoire system, 3000 skill fragments. Your level has increased by 1. That was something. At least I was level 6 now, even if I had no idea what a skill grimoire system was, or what the heck I do with skill fragments. All I knew was that a bunch of balls like money from Kingdom Hearts swirled around me before getting absorbed into my body after All Might hit the villain, which apparently everyone saw, and I had to explain that I had no idea what the heck happened there to the heroes. Turns out that random balls getting absorbed into the idiot kid who stupidly ran into the villain attack is normally a red flag of some sort. Specifically that apparently. That is a really specific scenario to be wary of. At any rate, they eventually let me go when I promised that I wouldn't do anything too stupid without adult supervision. I was walking home when, "Hey, DKU." A fuming Kakin shoved himself at my face. "I don't ever need your help. If you ever try to bail me out like that again, I'll kill you." Just to make his point, he let out an explosion aimed at the sky as he walked away. I sighed and continued along my way. For all of 5 seconds before All Might ran out in front of me. "I am here." "All Might, what are you doing here? Weren't you speaking to the press?" "Ha ha ha. I stand for justice, not sound bites. For I am All Might." He started to go on this big speech before spewing out vital fluid and shrinking down to his civilian form. I gave him a few minutes to clean himself off before he said, "Young man, I came to thank you and apologize. If you hadn't told me that you couldn't use your quirk if you hadn't ran in there, I would have been a worthless bystander, too afraid to do anything. So thanks. All Might, I'm not done. You told me you couldn't really use your power, so when I saw this boy who might as well be quirkless try to save a life, it inspired me too. There's stories about every hero, how they became great. Most have one thing in common. Their bodies moved before they had a chance to think, almost on their own. And today, that's what happened to you. I'm not going to lie, I teared up at this part. A lot. Young man, you too can become a hero. I don't know what to say. Thank you. And I'm going to give you my quirk too. Wait, what? My quirk? It's called One for All. It's a special power that can be passed on from one generation to the next, cultivated by one user, then given on to a successor. Keep out of the OH God wound. I won't be able to be a hero much longer, so I've been meaning to find someone to give One for All. It's actually why I came here. So kid, what do you say? Want to be the next All Might? Midori Izuku.exe has stopped working. Reboot? Y/N. Why? What? I yelled. I want you to be my successor. I'll also help train you to use your quirk even if you don't want my quirk, so don't worry about that. I bowed. All Might, I'd be honored. Great, kid. Let's trade phone numbers. All Might asked me for my phone number. All Might asked me for my phone number. I gave him my phone number, and he gave me mine. I'll call you when I get everything ready. See you then. He then walked off. I spent the rest of my walk home in silence, contemplating what just happened today. It was so crazy. But one thing was for sure. One thing that I had to do the second I got home. I walked in the door and immediately said, Mom, I have to tell you something. Mom immediately came running and said, What is it, honey? She looked a little nervous. I gulped. Mom, I said, I have a quirk. The look on her face, that look of relief, joy, and excitement, was something I knew I'd cherish for years to come. Your quirk is really weird, the green hair doctor said. He didn't act too serious, so that didn't surprise me, but shouldn't you be a little more professional about this? I asked. I was actually really excited. Who'd have thought that I'd get taken to a quirk counselor? All right, he said, then adjusted his glasses. In my professional opinion, your quirk is really weird. I think it's probably mutant because it's always on, but it doesn't seem to have any effect on your appearance and manifested very late, even though most mutant quirks are usually present from the beginning. So you say you can see titles? Tell me what it says about me, please. Bamboo Doctor. LV10. Takanaka, Subiru. Bamboo Doctor, Level 10, Takanaka Subiru, I recited. Interesting, he said, then turned his fingers into bamboo. The title even provided a clue to my quirk, Bamboo Shoot. What's your say? The Gamer, Level 6, Midoriya Izuku. It used to be Level 5, but I got a level up off a quest. He wrote something down on his clipboard. Okay, so you said that you have a main menu? Yeah. I've only looked at one of the menus on it yet, but it looked like it worked like a game. Can you open it? Sure. Main menu. I found out after telling my mom about my quirk that I could trigger my skills and things by saying them out loud, too. Status screen. Skill list. Skill grimoire. Inventory. Party options. Map. Quest log. Options. Huh, I said. What is it? Takanaka-sensei asked me. I have a new menu that I didn't have before called Skill Grimoire. I got something called the Skill Grimoire system as the reward for a quest, so I guess that's what that is. Okay, why don't you just tell me what they are? Status screen, skill list, skill grimoire, inventory, party options, map, quest log, and options. You know what, just open all the menus and tell me whatever you think's important. You seem like a smart kid. I trust you. Thanks, I think. I heard a ping. A quest has been created. Tutorial level. You really should learn what your new quirk can do. Open up all the menus. Completion. 500 EXP, 100 skill fragments, increased closeness with Bakugo. That last one was a little out there, but I just got a tutorial quest. What? I got a quest telling me to look at my menus. Well then do that. Alright. I clicked the status screen button. First I have a status screen. Name, Midoriya Izuku. Title, The Gamer. Level 6. HP, 325 of 325. MP, 400 of 400. Strength, 10. Vitality, 12. Dexterity, 11. Intelligence, 30. Wisdom, 12. Luck, 11. Points, 5. Money, 0 yen. Skill fragments, 3,500. It shows all of the things that my title shows, though it lists them name, title, level instead of title, level name. After that, it shows my current HP, MP, some stats, points that I think I get 5 of per level and can be used to raise my stats. Money and skill fragments. I got the skill fragments when I unlocked the skill grimoire, so I think that they're linked. I can also raise my stats by doing activities that you would expect them to be used. For example, studying raises INT and stamina exercise raises VIT. All right, he handed me a piece of paper. Write down your current stats, so the readers don't have to read you repeating those. 2. What? Next menu? Skill list. The skill list opened. A list of my skills appeared with little icons representing them. Skills? I got some things called skills. I guess you could say that they're like spells in a game. That's not exactly right, but I don't know what else to call them. I get them by doing certain things, and they seem to be able to level up if I use them enough. All right, so what skills do you have? There's Observe, which gives me a text box with a bunch of information on what I use it on. Scan Cool. Do you get like a background, or just what it is? I only get a description of objects, but when I use it on people, it gives me a box a little like my status screen, only for them. Okay, can you use it on me? Then write my Observe thing on the back of that paper. I used Observe. Name, Takanaka Subiru. Title, Bamboo Doctor. Level, 10. HP, 600 of 600. MP, 650 of 650. Strength, 10. Vitality, 12. Dexterity, 13. Intelligence, 32. Wisdom, 49. Luck, 14. Quirk, Bamboo Shoot. Emotions, interested, curious. I also have Meditate, which I got by meditating. As one does. It allows me to restore my HP and MP, as well as train my WIS. As one does. I got 3 skills called Sense Danger, Sense Bloodthirst, and Physical Endurance when I got attacked by a villain. Those 3 are. I tapped on their skills, opening their windows. Sense Danger passive LV 1 EXP 99.99%. A skill that allows one to sense impending danger in one's surroundings. Sense Bloodthirst passive LV 1 EXP 51.08%. A skill that allows one to sense others' ill will towards one. Physical Endurance passive LV 1 EXP 35.24%. The body's toughness increases, reducing damage from physical attacks. 3% decrease in damage taken by physical attacks. Different. They say they're passive. So they're always on? I guess. I have a skill called Tear that lets me tear things, and I noticed that I had no idea what the first 2 were. 2 skills called Gamer's Body and Gamer's Mind. Hang on, I'll see what those 2 do. Gamer's Body passive LV Max. Grants a body that allows the user to live life like a game. Gamer's Mind passive LV Max. Allows the user to calmly think things through. Allows a peaceful state of mind. Grants immunity to psychological status effects. Both passive. One gives me the body to live life like a game, which I think might be why I didn't have a bruise after the villain attack, and the other makes me constantly calm. Both are at max level. They're probably a manifestation of my quirk. Okay, sounds legit. What next? I completed the copies of the text boxes that he'd asked of me. I feel like I should feel insulted by the fact that I have the strength of a 15-year-old, but I've literally never touched a weight before, so I can't really complain. So what's the next menu thing? It's the skill grimoire that I got from a quest. Okay, crack that baby open. Skill grimoire, I said. A glowing ball of green light appeared in front of me and shifted into the shape of a book. It then dulled, turning into a book with a blank green cover. It's a book, I said. I can see that, he told me, then wrote something down. You can see the book? I asked. Yup. Weird, I wasn't able to see any of the other things. Open that thing and see what's inside. I opened the book and saw a list of skills with a short description of what they were and the word skill fragments followed by a number for each of them. I think it's a skill shop. There's a list of skills and what's probably a skill fragment price. Well, the best way to test that hypothesis would be to try and buy one, he told me. Okay, I said. I looked over the skills for one that looked interesting within my price range and immediately saw one that was worth exactly as much skill fragments as the quest was going to give me. Mana Bolt Active Skill Fragments, 100. A skill that attacks by shooting a ball of mana. Attack power increases with INT. Range 10m. Hello, beautiful. I tapped it. A blue box appeared. You are attempting to learn the skill Mana Bolt. This will cost you 100 skill fragments. Confirm purchase? Yes/no. It's definitely a skill shop. I just got a message telling me to confirm my purchase of Mana Bolt. I told him, well, now we should see what happens when you purchase a skill. I tapped yes. The words on the Mana Bolt section began to glow, then the light shot into me. I felt the knowledge enter my head as the words were erased. When they were fully gone, the rest of the text shifted so that there wasn't a gap where Mana Bolt was. Mana Bolt active LV1 EXP 0% MP5. A skill that attacks by shooting a ball of mana. Attack power increases with INT and skill level. Range 10M. I learned it. I can now shoot mana out of my palms as an attack. Mana? MP, I'm pretty sure. The skill seemed good because it has more power the higher my INT is, and I have 30 INT. It also only costs 5 MP. He sighed. Well, I'm going to have to get some targets for you to test that out on. What next? I'd like to know what happens if I try to open my skill grimoire while my skill grimoire's already open. I can't close it like my other windows. Or I just haven't found the X, skill grimoire. The current skill grimoire burst into motes of light that faded from existence as a second skill grimoire appeared with the same animation. I looked through it, and it was identical to the other one. I guess it just gives me a new one. That's good to know in case I lose it. What happens if you damage it? Takanaka-sensei asked. I ripped the corner off of one of the pages. The book immediately burst into motes of light, like the old book. Found the X, he said, and wrote some more things down. Next menu? Inventory, I said. A box appeared in front of me. This one didn't have any text, and instead consisted of a grid and a separate box showing a silhouette of a person with a bunch of boxes that had my clothing in it. I'm pretty sure that it works like a video game inventory. There's also an equipment screen, which I'm sure is what it is because it has my clothes for the equipment. He tossed me his pen. Only one way to find out about the other one, though he told me. I touched the pen to the box, and it was swallowed by a distortion of space. Or something. That looks so cool from my point of view. He held up his clipboard as if to write something down. He stared at it for a second, then looked up and said, "Can I have my pen back?" I handed him his pen, and he said, "Right, now why don't you just mess around with it for a bit and see what happens? Maybe start by seeing if you can store something big, like that chair." I got up and focused. As I'd hoped, the inventory box moved where I commanded it to without me having to touch it. It swallowed up the chair, then spat it back out when I told it to. I tested to see how far away from me it would go and found that it stopped just over my arm's length away from my body. I then made it shrink down to one slot with the equipment screen disappearing and expand until it fully blocked my body from Takanaka-sensei's. Thankfully, it was translucent, so I could still see him. "Try throwing the pen at me again," I said. He threw the pen, and it was intercepted by my inventory, vanishing. I pulled the pen out of the inventory, closed the box, and threw the pen back to him. "I'm pretty sure I could catch projectiles with this." "You're probably right, though you might want to be careful with it. Just in case." Next menu? Party options, I said. I looked at the resulting box. It just brought up a box telling me that I need to form a party to get party options. "Well then try inviting me to your party." "Invite Takanaka-Saburo to party," I intoned. He immediately jumped out of his chair and started protecting his face with his arms, the forearms of which turned into bamboo. "Are you okay?" I asked him. "There's a box. It's blue and floaty and 2D and appeared out of nowhere." After a bit, he calmed down enough to sit back down and return his arms to normal. He cleared his throat, adjusted his glasses, and said, "That never happened." "Right. So it says Midoriya Izuku has invited you to the party. Accept? Then yes or no?" I'm guessing I should press the yes button. He pressed what I assumed was the yes button. I couldn't see his box for some weird reason. I immediately got a notification that he had accepted a party invite. Right, so I'm going to try to do stuff that being in a party would logically allow me to do while you look into party options, he told me. "Okay," I said. I opened up the party options box again. I can see all the members, send them messages, bring them up on the map, and kick them. I noticed a button at the top and pressed it. There's also a second tab for other options. Looks like I can change the party name and turn on experience sharing, though that one has a warning that it won't work if there's a level difference of 10 or higher. "What did you?" I was interrupted by a ping. "Takanaka. Sup, bro. I found party chat," he told me. It says that there are options for sending messages to one person or a whole group, and also a voice chat. So I guess you're also a telepath of sorts. I can also open up a status menu that implies I can get points from leveling up like you, though I'm assuming I have to be in your party to get that. That's probably it for parties, which is a sentence I thought I'd never say. Leave party. A box showed up telling me that Takanaka Subiru left the party. Next thing? Map, I said. I feel like I shouldn't have to say that I got a map. It shows me where I am and has dots that I'm pretty sure are people. Quest log now. He wrote something down and nodded. It's also pretty straightforward. It has a tab for completed quests and ongoing quests. They both work like MMO quests, even have checklists of what I have to do. He wrote it down. Onto the options. I can mess with sound, which is interesting because I apparently have background music that's currently muted. I turned the music on. It was actually really nice. It was relaxed, just the kind of music you'd expect in a tutorial level. I could listen to this for a while. Apparently, I have an option between retro-sounding and orchestral music, which is nice of my Quirk to provide. It says here I can open my music up to party members or everyone. I pressed the everyone button. Do you hear it? He bobbed his head. Yup, that's tutorial music. You should probably switch that back to just you before you leave, by the way. I switched it back and continued. I can invert the Y-axis, which I will never ever do ever. Oh, those are subtitles. I can turn subtitles on. I did it. I don't suppose you know any other languages, so I can see if it translates it. I saw that even my words had subtitles, despite the fact that they were at the bottom of my vision and there was no way I should have been able to read them. I could see them perfectly fine, like with my health bar. He said some things in. Was that Spanish? At any rate, I was able to read the subtitles giving me first what he said, and then in parentheses the translation, I'm Spanish on my mother's side. I saw the translation, which is awesome. That's about it. What now? Well, we got to see what that mana bolt skill you got was, but first I've got to tell you some things. I'm a Quirk counselor, remember? Your Quirk is pretty geared toward heroics, which is good because you said you're trying for UE, right? Yes, I'm really hoping to get into UE even with my late start. Right. Well, I'm going to send them a letter of recommendation. It won't be enough on its own to get you into UE or even get one of the recommended spots, but they're probably going to be looking out for you in the entrance exam. You'll still have to actually try, but doing your best should be enough. Next, public Quirk usage laws. You haven't had to deal with these so far, but you're going to have to remember not to use your Quirk in public. At least, don't make it obvious you're using your Quirk. He winked at me. Of course, those laws only apply to active Quirk usage. You shouldn't have to worry too much about passive skills, though if they're really obvious like, say, super speed, then you might want to exercise caution. I feel like super speed would be an active skill that drains a lot of MP, I said. That's beside the point. Another thing you shouldn't have to worry about is your skill grimoire. While you can't make it in public, Quirk usage laws state that Quirk-created objects are fine to bring into the public if they aren't something really out there like a glowing magical sword, so long as you don't purposefully use any anomalous effects that the object in question might have. In other words, you can't buy anything and don't break it on purpose, but nobody can do anything about you looking through the pages. Got it, I said. Right, I'm also supposed to recommend what I think is the best way to develop your Quirk. You don't actually have to listen to this, but I suggest you do. You should save your points for now. They'll probably be more useful in the future when you're trying to go from 100 to 101 than now when you're going from 10 to 11. Just save them for a rainy day or something. I suggest you also only spend skill fragments on skills you're absolutely sure about. Something tells me that it won't be as bad with those, but you should still spend them wisely. I also think you should get a healing spell and something defensive like a barrier. Another great thing to get would be something like elemental manipulation, which can have a lot of uses. Try also to see if you can make new skills by doing something to your old skills, like seeing if you can charge mana bolt, or maybe trying to release the mana differently. That's about all I can think of right now. Except maybe grind your stats some more before taking the entrance exam. So let's move on to seeing what Mana Bolt can do. He got up and had me follow him. We walked to a sort of gymnasium that was reinforced. This, he said, gesturing around the room, is the practical testing area. It's designed to withstand the punishment some of the more drastic quirks can dish out. He pointed at an archery target standing in one corner of the room. Give it a shot. We'll test what happens at different lengths away from the target to see the range on that thing. Actually, it's 10 meters. The skill said so, I told him. He sighed. Well, then just hit it at 10 meters and see what happens. I took aim. I held out my right hand, palm facing the target. I'd never done it before, but channeling my mana to my hand felt so natural. Mana Bolt, I shouted. A ball of sky blue light shot from my hand and hit the target dead on, blasting a hole in the center of the target. Takanaka-sensei whistled. I thought back to what he said about trying to make new skills with my existing skills. I closed my eyes, focusing. Getting Mana Bolt didn't just let me shoot mana from my palms. It gave me the ability to feel and use mana. So instead of releasing the mana this time when I used Mana Bolt, I let it pool up. When it felt ready to burst, I opened my eyes and looked at my creation. It was a giant ball of blue light. I narrowed my eyes and thought. It doesn't feel quite right, I muttered. Maybe if I started spinning the ball. After a few seconds, I released it and it flew at the target. When it hit the target, it exploded violently, destroying the target completely and making a crater in the floor. Oops, I said. Don't worry about it. That happened a lot, Takanaka-sensei told me. You're not in trouble or anything, though this is certainly one of the more impressive craters I've seen. Did you just make a new skill? Yeah, I said. I looked at the text box that popped up after I threw the skill. You have made a new skill. What would you like to name it? Spiral Mana Bomb, I said. Now that I had named it, a proper skill box popped up. Spiral Mana Bomb Active LV, 1 EXP, 4.27% MP25. A skill that pools mana and spins it for increased damage. 20% defense penetration. 600% damage increase. For second charge time. Can be charged for an additional 10 seconds to increase damage. Additional 25 MP used per second. It's powerful, but it has a charge time, so I won't be able to use it on the fly. It also eats a lot more mana than Mana Bolt. I can only just barely use it at the highest power when at full mana. You mean that wasn't full power? He asked incredulously. That was about 4 seconds, which is the minimum charge time, I replied. I know I said it was fine that you blew up the floor, but could you please not do that in here? Also, you should be really careful with that. I figured that giant bombs are a good thing not to throw around everywhere. Right, good. That's about everything for today. If you ever think of any questions or concerns about your quirk, remember that my job is literally to help you with that, so... Got it. Goodbye, and thanks for everything. Bye, kid. I expect to hear about you doing hero stuff soon. I smiled at him as I left. I couldn't sleep the previous night. Today was the first day that All Might was going to teach me hero work. I ended up staying up all night, grinding my INTWIS, LUC, and seeing if I could increase physical endurance by biting myself. Through repeated studying, your INT has increased by 1. Through repeated meditation, your WIS has increased by 1. X3. Through repeated games of chance, your LUC has increased by 1. X5. The level of the skill, physical endurance, has increased by 1. X8. A skill has been created through special action. By repeatedly biting things, the skill bite has been created. The level of the skill bite has increased by 1. X8. That was a productive night, and yet I somehow didn't feel tired at all. It was pretty obvious that it'd be harder to upgrade stats as they increased in level, but I was prepared to deal with that. When the alarm I'd set to go off when I was supposed to wake up went off, I got up from my desk and went downstairs to make myself breakfast. After I was done getting ready for the morning, I went to wait by the door and started meditating. Right after my WIS increased by 1 again, I heard a knock at the door. I'll get it, I yelled at my mom excitedly. This was it. Oma was going to train me. I opened my door to see. Hey, you shitty Deku. Kakin yelled at me. I almost laughed with how suddenly the music changed from calm, homey music to heavy metal. He didn't look like he was too angry, so I used Observe on him. Emotions, relieved, regretful. What? What do you want? I asked him cautiously. The hag told me, she heard from your mom that you finally got your quirk. Took you long enough. I figured that even if we haven't been the best of friends in a while, that's the sort of thing you're supposed to celebrate, so I wanted to take you to the arcade or something. Maybe blow stuff up and whatever you could do later. Was he blushing? The emotions thing changed to also include embarrassed, so probably. You certainly changed your tone about me pretty fast. Why do you want to be my friend now? Shut up, shitty Deku. Kakin shouted. It's not like I was worried about a quirkless loser like you getting himself killed, because he can't do anything like blow it up or punch the air so hard it makes shockwaves. Huh, that was actually pretty sweet for him. Still, though. So you were worried about me and wanted to discourage me from being a hero because I didn't have a quirk I realized. You do realize that there are heroes who can get by using their quirks, right? The pro hero Mandalay has telepath, which lets her send one-way telepathic messages to people. And yet I've seen videos of her taking down villains. Eraserhead's quirk doesn't work at all on mutant quirks, yet I've still heard about him taking down mutant villains. I've also heard about villains still giving him trouble with his quirk being used on them, meaning that they were skilled enough to fight without their quirks. Recovery Girl was in the top 20 at one point, and her quirk heals people, which has negative use in most one-on-one fights. There are even more examples of people with quirks that are useless or finicky in combat who can beat villains. Heck, a relative of mine who is quirkless used to be a vigilante and actually took down villains. A quirkless person could totally be a hero, though me being a quirkless hero is kind of not an issue anymore. All right, I'm sorry. There, I said it. Now why don't we go blow it up to blow off steam? I bet you could use some practice with your quirk, he said. I'd like to, surprisingly enough, but I already made plans for today. What kind of plans? I was very glad to be interrupted by a familiar voice. Young Midoriya, is that a friend of yours? All Might asked as he walked up in his civilian form. Yeah, I guess so. This is Kakin, I told him. Well, hello, young Kakin. He greeted. Deku, I swear to God, don't get everyone to start calling me Kakin again. Kakin growled at me. It took half a year for everyone in first grade to stop calling me Kakin. All Might started laughing. And don't you dare start, Skeletor. My name is Bakugo Katsuki. Got that? Got it memorized? I said, with the appropriate gesture. Deku, stop making video game references, you nerd. And what are you doing here, Papyrus? What was that about video game references, Kakin? I was impressed by young Midoriya's courage in the Sludge villain attack, so I decided to train him when he told me he wanted to go to Yui. All Might explained. Kakin burst out into laughter. Deku's going to actually train for Yui? Finally! I thought you didn't want me to go to Yui when we thought I didn't have a quirk. I said, yeah, but I thought that you just saying that you wanted to be a hero and then doing nothing to accomplish that except take notes about everybody's quirks, like that'll somehow make you invincible, was stupid, Deku. Well, why didn't you say anything? I was already trying to get you to give up. Telling you to take karate lessons would have been a mixed message. All Might cleared his throat, then started coughing up again. I really needed to see if I could fix that a bit with a healing spell or something. As I said, I decided to train young Midoriya. My name is Yagi Tashinori. How does a beanpole like you know anything about fitness anyway? Kakin asked. I used to be in quite good shape, All Might explained. I was in a very unfortunate accident, and while I did survive, parts of my internal organs unfortunately did not. Now, I'm afraid that young Midoriya and I must be leaving. It will take a lot of effort to get Midoriya in shape for Yui, and I would also like to help him with his quirk. You two got room for one more? I'm going to Yui too, so being in better shape will probably be a good idea. Plus, this way I get to see what Deku's quirk is too. If young Midoriya is fine with it, I will be glad to help develop another hero in the making. It's fine, I said. It actually felt really nice knowing that I could be friends with Kakin again. Let's go. On the way there, All Might asked about both of our quirks. Kakin answered first, then looked at me like he really wanted to hear what mine was. When I was finished, he snorted and said, your quirk is really weird. I guess I shouldn't be too surprised that a video game nerd like you would have a quirk like that. Be kind, young Bakugo. Though I must say, it is really weird, All Might said. I'll probably have to move some things around with the training, but this could actually be really good. He stopped. We're here. Kakin and I looked up at the huge piles of trash strewn across the beach. Trash gets washed in by the current on this beach, and people just dump their stuff here because there's already so much trash. Fighting villains might be a part of hero work, but so is community service. By the end of these 10 months, this beach will be spotless. That will be part of your training. I also have the paperwork necessary to be a quirk tutor, so a secluded place like this with no people will be fine for the two of you to train your quirks. So we gotta clean this up, right? Got it, Kakin exclaimed, then did that exploding fist punch thing that he really likes to do. You go ahead, Kakin. I have to talk to Yagi-sensei about my quirk, I told him. I walked over to All Might and pulled out my skill grimoire. Once Kakin was out of earshot, I said, I think Kakin would be okay if you told him everything. All Might. He's a big fan of yours too, so he'd probably keep a secret if you told him. Also, could you please look this over while we're training? All right. Young Midoriya. Is this that skill grimoire that you spoke of? Yes. I discovered that if you say bookmark while holding it open to a page, a bookmark will appear on that page. Would it be possible for you to read some of it and bookmark anything that you think I might find useful? Be sure to pay close attention to anything to do with healing, defense, barriers, movement enhancement, strength enhancement, elemental manipulation, teleportation, flight, and anything that uses the words super mode and limit break. Don't worry, young Midoriya. It may seem odd to know that an old man like myself has played video games, but I have played quite a few. I still know some cool strats and hacks, he said, giving me the thumbs up as he accepted the book. There is something really hilarious about All Might talking video games. Now perhaps we should fill in young Bakugo. We walked over to where Kakin was lifting a tire. Young Bakugo, I must speak to you. Kakin looked up from his tire. What is it? He asked. I haven't exactly been entirely honest with you. It is true that I wanted to train young Midoriya because he impressed me, but that isn't the only thing. I was also going to pass my quirk on to him. Kakin blinked. I called it a load of CRP, but Deku's quirk makes him a video game, so now I'm just curious about why did Deku would want that. I am, believe it or not, a pro hero. The accident that I told you about that left me like this was the attack of a powerful villain. My quirk allows me to stockpile massive amounts of energy, which lets me still do hero work for 3 hours each day. Why the ever-loving hell would you do that to yourself, you moron? Kakin shouted. If you're so banged up, why could you possibly think that hero work is a good idea? Because All Might said, my hero name is All Might. With that, he went into his muscle form. Kakin's mouth dropped. If I, the symbol of peace, were to retire, there would be chaos. That is why I would like to train young Midoriya here to be my successor. Damn it. This is going to have to be a secret, isn't it? Kakin grumbled. Exactly, young Bakugo, All Might said, then reverted back to his regular form. At least, until such time as I retire. Then I'm going to probably have to reveal to everyone why I retired. Okay, fine. Your secret's safe with me. Now, why haven't you given Deku your quirk yet? Shouldn't he have enough time to practice with it? About that. My quirk, one for all, is rather powerful. The backlash would blow young Midoriya's limbs off unless he gains enough muscle to properly contain it. As such, the training is necessary to prevent that. I blinked. You mean I could blow my arms and legs off if I don't train hard enough? Ping. A quest has been created. Roaring muscles. As you are now, the power of one for all would immediately destroy you. Get at least 50 VIT before the UE entrance exam, or do it without one for all. Completion. One for all. 5,000 EXP. 5,000 skill fragments. Increased closeness with Bakugo. Increased closeness with Yagi. Failure. Decreased closeness with Bakugo. Decreased closeness with Yagi. I just got a quest to get 50 VIT in 10 months with one for all listed as a reward. That's probably sufficient, right? I suppose that if your quest says it's okay, I'll just give you one for all then. That being said, perhaps the two of you should start working now, right? We both said at the same time, then went off to pick up junk. The next breakthrough came about 3 months later. I continued to grind my mental stats and any skills I could without making too much noise in the dead of night. Turns out that part of gamer's mind is apparently the ability to stay up all night long without needing to sleep, which was very useful. That night, I was doing some anti-derivatives in my head when I heard 2 pings. Through rigorous studying, your INT has increased by 1. The skill Mana Affinity has been created through INT rising above 50. Mana Affinity Passive LV 1 EXP 0%. Mana, a mysterious power that allows people to do extraordinary things. This skill increases the user's sensitivity and control with that power, granting them an affinity with mana. 10% increase in mana recovery rate. 5% increase in total MP. 5% increase to magic attack. 5% increase to magic defense. 30% increase to MP-related skill effects. I blinked. Then, I slowly got up and silently did the "you got the thing" pose from Zelda. "Hada," I whispered. That was a game changer. If I got a skill like that for increasing every stat past 50, and perhaps even other intervals, then that would be very, very useful. I brought up my stats. Name, Midoriya Izuku. Title, The Gamer. Level 6. HP, 1550/1550. MP, 2100/2100. Strength, 32. Vitality, 36. Dexterity, 34. Intelligence, 51. Wisdom, 45. Luck, 30. Points, 5. Money, 0 yen. Skill fragments, 3,500. Definitely something to look forward to. It looked like I had to get the stats above 50, and not just at 50. I noted that my WIS was already approaching 50. I'd ended up using meditation a lot, seeing as it restored my HP and MP, and I could use it anywhere that I needed to wait without drawing too much attention. I decided to just grind WIS at every possible opportunity until I passed 50. I closed my eyes and began meditating. A few days of meditation grinding later, I finally got it. The skill Nature Affinity has been created through rising WIS above 50. Nature Affinity Passive LV 1 EXP 0%. The power of the forces of is nature great. The Wrath of Nature has leveled cities and decimated towns. This skill increases the user's sensitivity and control over those forces, granting them an affinity with the elements. 25% increase to mana recovery rate. 10% increase to elemental attack. 10% increase to elemental defense. 50% increase to element-related skill effects. I grinned. Sure, I didn't as of that moment have any elemental skills, but I knew I could get some. In fact, I decided to do just that the next day. Despite how tiring it was, those long days I spent training with All Might and Kakin became precious memories to me. Not only was I receiving help from All Might, but I was finally getting to be close to Kakin again. I hadn't realized how much I'd missed having him as a friend until I got him back. Sure, he was abrasive, but you could see how much he really cared if you looked closely enough. The thing that I loved the most about those training days, however, was that I could finally use my quirk. True to his words, All Might showed off his teaching license and had us sign some forms that said that he'd be officially tutoring us to use our quirks the 10 months before the entrance exam. With that, we were allowed to use our quirks on the beach so long as he was around, and we didn't use our quirks on anyone that wasn't part of the training. Kakin came flying towards me, sparking palm, facing me. Die! He screamed. His explosion, however, was blocked by a blue barrier that shimmered into existence around me. It shattered, but not before protecting me from all of the damage. I still think that that's annoying, by the way, he said as he landed back on the ground. Mana Dome Active LV 28 EXP 32.95% MP 45. A spherical barrier made of mana used to protect the user. Protect against some damage. Additional 45 MP used per minute. A useful skill that I'd managed to puzzle out early on from seeing its description in the skill grimoire, which I've been grateful for because I hadn't had to spend skill fragments on it. If it works, I told him, then adjusted my stance. Now come at me. And how? He blast propelled himself at me, firing a second blast in just his right hand to make him spin for a punch. It would have been a good move. Had a small sheet of mana, slightly thicker than my mana dome, not appeared in front of my blocking arm. Mana Shield Active LV 24 EXP 98.67%. An adaptation of Mana Dome that forsakes full body protection for efficiency and increased durability. Has higher durability than Mana Dome. 50 MP used per square meter of shield per minute. Again, if it works, I repeated with a arrogant grin. This caused him to scream psychotically and charge at me. Kakin was still so easy to rile up. He threw more of those enhanced punches, and I blocked each one. I then shot a blue rope of mana at him, which bound around his body. Bind Active LV 13 EXP 5.45% MP 5. A skill to tie an enemy with a rope made of mana. Can only be used by those who have a talent in manipulating mana. I made the skill after making a sort of rope with my mana and using it to tie up Kakin in a spar. Actually, I got a skill called Mana Rope first, but using it to tie up Kakin gave me a skill called Bind. You still have too much of a temper, Kakin. That won't be too good for hero work, even if you've been improving a lot, I said as I snapped my fingers. The bind dissolved on cue. Name, Bakugo Katsuki. Title, Lord Explosion Murder. Level, 21. HP, 2800/2800. MP, 1750 of 1750. Strength, 42. Vitality, 46. Dexterity, 55. Intelligence, 37. Wisdom, 25. Luck, 14. Quirk, Explosion. Emotions, Angry. Fire Affinity, 50. His stats were coming along nicely. I noticed that I could see a thing that said Fire Affinity in his stat screen after I got Nature Affinity, probably from being more sensitive to the elements. Shut up, Deku. You of all people don't get to say anything about what is or isn't good for hero work. Now heal me. My fists feel like I just got in a boxing match with a brick wall. I sighed and walked over to put my glowing green hands on his, causing a similar glow to spread to his hands as the bruises faded. Healing Hands Active LV 3 EXP 54.86% MP 50. The power of a charitable soul to channel mana into a target's body to heal them. 55 HP restored. Removes minor illnesses, debuffs, and negative conditions. The second skill that I actually spent fragments on. It had cost me 1,500 and needed me to have 55 WIS before I could get it. But it seemed like it'd be worth it at higher levels. Or I could just spam. I'd immediately tested to see what it'd do to All Might when I got it. Unfortunately, it was nowhere near the level needed to come even close to restoring him to his former glory, but he told me that he felt better and the skill got EXP off of it, so that was a plus. I'd ended up regularly using it on him as grinding. Thanks, Kakin grumbled. Now let's move on to regular old hand-to-hand. Though seriously, why do you know martial arts? I asked. Hey, F you, man. Quirk Fist is a good discipline. All the kata are adaptable enough to be used in conjunction with quirks, and it teaches you the kind lateral thinking needed to use quirks in combat. You see my moves, and I've already seen you improve since you started. Now begin your stance. And so it continued. After a long day of sparring and the leveling up of multiple martial arts-related skills, as well as physical endurance, I walked over to All Might. I've decided how I want to spend the rest of my skill fragments, I told him as I healed him. Very good. Young Midoriya, what are you going to get? He asked, then handed me the skill grimoire. I opened to one of the bookmarks that All Might had placed. Summon basic elemental active skill fragments. 2000. Long ago, man learned of the power of nature and learned to harness it. Some learned to not only harness nature's power, but give it life of its own and summon it at will. Elemental's power dependent on skill level, WIS, and elemental affinity. I'm pretty sure that the ability to make elementals could be really useful, at least from what the skill says, I said. I'm still not sure why the skill's at such a low price, but I'm not really complaining. I placed my hand on the skill. You are attempting to buy the skill Summon Basic Elemental. This will cost you 2,000 skill fragments. Confirm purchase? I hit the yes button. As with the other skills, the words turned into light and flew into me. I frowned. What's wrong, young Midoriya? What's Deku working on? Kakin came up and asked, sipping his water bottle. The elemental summoning one, I told him. It looks like summoning an elemental for the first time is a lot more complex than just using the skill. There's a whole ritual that I have to do, get a contract with an elemental. Well then let's get started, Kakin said. Can't be too hard. I looked up at the sky. Yeah, but I can also tell that the ritual will make me unconscious for several hours, and it's getting late. I'd rather not worry my mom by coming home super late. Okay, so let's go do it at your house. That way your mom knows where you are. I thought about it. Okay, I take it you want to watch? He shrugged. Yeah, why not? I don't have anything better to do. As we walked home, he asked me, Hey Deku, what does that elemental summoning skill even do? I can summon elemental. Magic things, I guess, that can control whatever element they're tied to. If I have more than one type of elemental, then for the moment, I'd only be able to have one active, though that'll change as the skill levels up. So you can make multiple? Yeah, but I have to have an affinity for whatever element I'm using. I gained a skill called Elemental Affinity that gives me bonuses to using elemental powers and other stuff, which allow me to make an affinity that I can use for it. Actually, my observe tells me that you have a fire affinity that's 5 times as high as my affinity. He scoffed. Well, no. I've got a violently pyrogenic quirk. I needed to not blow my hands off. Probably. He was silent for a few seconds, then said, I've been meaning to ask, a lot of your skills, the way their descriptions read, it almost seems to imply that other people can use your skills. Did you read my gamer journal? I asked him. How did you even read my journal? I've kept it in my inventory except for the times I wanted to read or write in it. I looked over your shoulder while you read from it a few times. Dummy. It's actually a really interesting read. What? Did you think I snuck in while you slept and somehow got you to open your inventory and take out your journal in your sleep? That wouldn't work? I told him, then sneakily snuck my journal out of my inventory without anyone seeing. Though if you want to read my journal, you could just ask. He happily took the journal and started looking through it. Thanks, but you didn't answer my original question. What is up with your skills? I honestly don't get it. It seems like it. Heck, the Summon Basic Elemental Ritual has a mention of a contract from ages past. So who knows? He nodded, then turned the page. What does it feel like to use mana, then? Maybe it feels different from using a quirk. Or similar. Or whatever. I thought about it for a while. It feels like taking from a well of power, then directing it in the way I need to. When I use the skills, though, it feels like the power is being directed in the way it's supposed to go. If I concentrate enough, though, I can divert the flow to do something else. Huh, he said, then looked at his hand. That's kind of what explosion feels like, but it only ever goes to my hands. Weird. Hey, are you done with my book? I like to put an entry in for Summon Basic Elemental. He grumbled, but handed my book over. I began writing the entry down with a pencil that I snuck out of my inventory. So what elemental are you getting? He asked. Huh? Kaken scoffed. You can only get one at a time, so I'm guessing you're only going to get one, even if you could probably get more. I smiled and put my finger on my lips. It's a surprise, Kaken. It's earth or air, isn't it? I stared at him for a second, then cleared my throat and said, I will neither confirm nor deny your theory, but what makes you think that? You said that your INT and WIS are both over 50 by now, so you're probably smart enough to know to start out with an elemental that you've always got material to work with. Sure, you could totally figure out some sort of fireball spell, but that'd be more MP used for something less versatile, so that's something you're going to save till later. The only options that you're going to have a lot of are air, which if you don't have it then everyone's dead, and earth, which probably includes rocks, minerals, and maybe even refined metals. Both are more readily accessible than fire and water. Of course, if there are more elements than the 4 classic ones, then maybe element 5 is also a good option, so I don't know. Wow, he was putting his high INT score to work. I thought about making a cheese elemental, but I didn't think it'd be that Gouda, I replied. Deku, I swear to God. We're here, I said. We just walked up to my house. Let's eat dinner before I do the ritual. Mom was happy to have Kaken over for dinner. I'm glad to see you boys getting along after so long, she said as she set curry on the table. If you don't mind me asking, why did you come here today, Katsuki-kun? Kaken grinned. Deku's gonna do some sort of magic thing, and I wanted to watch. Mom looked at me for answers. I got a skill called Summon Basic Elemental that lets me use things called elementals to control the 4 classical elements. To use it, however, I have to perform a ritual that works as a sort of contract with the elemental, and that might make me fall asleep. Oh, Mom said. Okay, I guess that's okay. Just brush your teeth before you do it. Also, you wouldn't mind if I watched, would you? No, go right ahead, I said. Later, after I brushed my teeth and Mom and Kaken joined me in the living room, I laid my journal on the table and opened it up to the page on Summon Basic Elemental. Or rather, the 2nd and 3rd pages, which were occupied almost completely by the summoning circle needed to perform the ritual. 2 concentric circles, one only slightly smaller than the other, and with a 5-pointed star in them positioned so that the points were all on the outer circle. I closed my eyes and concentrated on the air around me, how it felt. Air affinity, 10. And on my new air affinity, Midoriya Izuku, call upon the ancient contract of ages past to summon thee. I chanted, blushing at the way it was worded. Kakin snickered. I hope you heed my call. Come, air elemental. You called it. Kakin yelled. Something in the air stirred. Despite the fact that we were indoors, the wind began to pick up. It all swirled into the center of the circle, forming a miniature tornado. The tornado collapsed in on itself, the air solidifying into the form of a young boy with blue robes and short hair and wings that looked like they were made of varying types of cloud. Kakin started laughing hysterically. Ha 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 ha. He's so tiny. The boy was also small enough that I could hold him in the palm of my hand. Despite his small stature, I could feel a powerful presence coming from him. He looked at me with piercing blue eyes, making me feel like I was staring into the sky. I'll begin in accordance with the ancient rituals. My real name is Midoriya Izuku. You have heard my true name. Please tell me yours. As soon as I finished saying it, I felt myself pull apart, scattering into millions of pieces. I flew away, soaring over hills, mountains, valleys, and even oceans. I was no longer bound to a material form. I was free to go wherever I wanted, even if it meant everywhere. I was as free as the wind. I was the wind. I saw the living room again, except I was gone, replaced by a swirling hurricane in human shape. As I watched, the hurricane dissipated, leaving nothing behind. And then I was back to normal. The air elemental was sitting on my hand. I am here, he said. My name is Halidus. You are Midoriya Izuku? Yes, we are one, as the ancient contract dictates. Our souls are one. I am Halidus. I am Midoriya Izuku. Until our souls meet their ends, he started to say. We will be forever one. I finished with a feeling of awe. Should you ever need wind beneath your wings, call upon my power, he said with a bow, then dissolved into the air. Or back to the air. Okay, I said, and then felt like I was falling as everything went black. That night, I dreamt of a gigantic storm ravaging the whole world. Katsuki stared at the book sitting on his desk. This thing might as well be a spell book with how much detail Izuku put into it. He flipped through a few more pages, soaking in all the knowledge that was present. This thing is a spell book. He closed it. Ever since Deku had said described as mana, he'd been curious. He closed his eyes, concentrating on the power that lay within him. He'd drawn upon it so many times, using it to ignite the sweat on his hands and amplify the blasts. He'd never questioned it. It was just what his quirk felt like. But now he had a theory. He drew upon the energy, but this time he didn't let it follow the path it normally took when he used his quirk. It took a few tries, but he managed to make it rise to his hand without interacting with his sweat. He opened his eyes. A blue glow was emanating from his right hand. He laughed. Deku was right, he muttered to himself. He concentrated, and the mana consolidated into a small ball hovering above his hand. He thought for a moment, then concentrated on fire. What it felt like, what it looked like. He looked at the ball of mana and tried to combine it with the fire in his mind. The mana responded to his thoughts, changing from glowing blue energy to a ball of fire. Katsuki grinned. With his free hand, he opened the book back up to the page Deku had used earlier, the one with a magic circle on it. Deku, for whatever reason, had even included the incantation needed to call the elemental. Not that Katsuki was complaining. He placed his right hand on the center. I, Bakugo Katsuki, call upon the contract of ages past to summon thee, he intoned. He'd probably have been a little bit embarrassed by having to say that if any people were around to watch him. Though at the same time, the fact that he knew it was going to work really helped. I hope you heed my call. Come, fire elemental. The fireball in his hand shifted, then began to change. It shrank down on itself, transforming into the shape of a young girl that could easily fit in Katsuki's palm. The girl had long, flame-colored hair that flowed down her back and glowed softly, with two pointed, yellow-furred ears of some sort of animal poking out the top. She had a yellow sundress with highlighting of similar coloring and glow to her hair, and, for whatever reason, she also had a tail made of fire. The girl looked at him with glowing, fire-colored eyes that made Katsuki feel like he was staring into a roaring inferno. He gulped. I'll begin in accordance with the ancient rites. My real name is Bakugo Katsuki. I have told you my true name. Please tell me yours. He felt himself begin to burn up, but it didn't hurt at all. He didn't become consumed by the fire, but became it. He raged and destroyed everything in his path. Entire forests were burnt to a crisp by him. He was fire itself. He saw himself, but he was made of white-hot flames. And then he was back to normal. The fire elemental was exactly where she was before. I am here, she said. My name is Pyra. You are Bakugo Katsuki? Yes. We are one, as the ancient contract dictates. Our souls are one. I am Pyra. I am Bakugo Katsuki. Until our souls meet their ends, she started to say. We will be forever one. Katsuki answered quietly. Should you ever need me to light your way, you need only call, she told him with a curtsy, then vanished in a burst of fire. Right, I will, Katsuki solemnly swore. He got up and staggered. He didn't immediately pass out like Deku did, but he felt drained. F that hits hard, he griped. But why the hell didn't I wipe out like Deku? He closed the journal, turned off his light, then went to bed. That night he dreamt of a titanic monster of fire burning all that was in its path. My alarm sounded. I yawned and turned it off. I hadn't had a sleep in a while, so that was a little weird. I blinked the sleep out of my eyes, then looked at the text box that greeted me. You have slept in a bed. Your HP and MP have been restored, and any negative status effects have been cured. Huh, I said. I'm probably never going to see that again. Good to know, though. I sat up and did a few stretches to get myself moving. Remembering what I'd done last night, I whispered Halidus. My new elemental appeared from nowhere, sitting on my bed and now about as big as a regular 8-year-old boy. He was, at the moment, in his incorporeal form, which I now somehow knew would cost me nothing to use unless I started using him to control the air around me. I could summon him to a corporeal form, but that would require a steady mana cost. Hello, I said cautiously. Hello, master, he replied. His voice didn't seem to make any audible sound, but I could still hear in my head. What do you need of me? He asked. Nothing for the moment. I just wanted some company and to maybe ask you a few questions. I looked at Summon Basic Elemental. The skill had gained a level off of the summoning ritual, but now was ever so slightly increasing over time now that I had Halidus out, which was good. What do you need of me? I got up and started to walk to the kitchen. Unfortunately, today was a school day, so I couldn't stay at the beach all day and grind no matter how much I wanted to. My training options were really limited at school, but I'd have to make do. What do you know about me? I asked. You are Midoriya Izuku. You're my master. Our souls are one. He did not waste words, did he? I blinked. Is that it? Yes. What do you know about the world? There is air. The air moves. People are noisy. This place used to look different. I idly wondered if the way he talked was something that all elementals did, or if it was just Halidus. What can you tell me about yourself? I asked as I made myself breakfast. I am air. I move the air. Our souls are one. I sighed. This might be difficult. Who are you talking to, Izuku? My mom asked. All right, I said. I manifested Halidus, watching his air swirled around to give him a body. You remember Halidus, right, Mom? Izuku, dear, I don't think I could ever forget what happened last night, she told me. Right, I said. Sorry. I was just asking Halidus some questions about himself. Halidus gave a small nod of his head when I said his name. All right. Hello, Halidus? She said uneasily. I am pleased to meet you, Mother of Master, he replied. Now that he was corporeal, his voice was audible. Please call me Inko, she laughed. Of course, Inko-sama. Mom sighed. You. San will do. Yes, Inko-san. Halidus, what exactly can you do to move the air? I asked. You give me mana, and I can control the air in any way you want. My range currently has a radius of roughly 100 meters, and it will increase as my power grows. My power will increase as your power grows. Okay, I said. Do you know what my quirk is? I know not what a quirk is. I know nothing of how the world is now. Oh, I said. I'm going to have to fill you in on a lot, aren't I? If that is what you wish, Master. I ended up talking to Halidus as I walked to school. For whatever reason, Kakin didn't meet me when I passed by his house like he'd started doing after we made up, so I just moved on. I'd made Halidus incorporeal before I left the house, because I felt like maybe creating a sentient being made of air mana might be pushing public quirk usage laws a little far. And that book was how I was able to summon you. I finished. He said nothing. I was about to say something when he suddenly moved. Master, someone is rapidly approaching, he told me. Hey DKU, a familiar voice yelled. Wait up. Kakin ran up to me, panting a bit. You were just going to leave without me, idiot? I thought that maybe you were sick when you weren't waiting for me, I told him. Then check with that elemental of yours or something. He's got to have some sort of air sensing power. I only got Halidus last night, I told him. I don't know everything about him yet. Why were you late anyway? He snarled. Alarm clocks. Sometimes they just spontaneously combust and all. You blew up your alarm clock again, didn't you? I sighed. F off. This time it wasn't me. Was it just me, or was he glaring at the air? Well, not directly me, anyway. Enough of that thing. Want your book back? He handed my journal back to me. I nodded. Thanks, Kakin. He snorted. What, did y'all think I was going to blow it up or drop in a pond like some idiot? I gave him a blank look. You did that to one of my hero journals. Shut up, he said. Hey, I got to talk to you about something after school. Okay, we can meet on the beach after you're done with detention. Kakin had blown up at some bullies who were trying to taunt me about how long it took for my quirk to develop, and had ended up in detention because of it. Detention, he sighed. Meet y'all there. School was boring, as usual. Because I had to study to increase my INT, I was already miles ahead of every class. My INT also meant that my memory was more or less eidetic, so I didn't have to worry about forgetting what it was. So long as I paid enough attention in class to know what was going on, I'd be free to let my mind wander to more exciting topics, like how I now had an air-controlling spirit for a minion. I'd figured out in homeroom that I could communicate with Halidus telepathically, like he did, and use that to test the limits of what he could do throughout the next few periods without anybody asking me why I was muttering to the air. Though to be fair, I did mutter a lot, so they might have just dismissed it as Deku being Deku. I found out that Halidus could passively sense all of the air within his range. While he couldn't transfer the information directly to my mind, he could just tell me where everything was. He could also tell how the air was moving, allowing him to not only feel the wind, but air temperature and sound traveling through the air as well. I discreetly figured out that 1 MP was worth about 1 Newton of force when it came to Halidus air moving, so I unfortunately couldn't use it for sustained flight yet. After I was done figuring out what Halidus limits, I went back to what I normally did during my classes, thinking about my skills. Maybe I could do something to change healing hands, I thought. If I try to reverse the flow, maybe I'll get some sort of life-draining skill. If I put more mana into it and change how fast it heals, that'll make a Regan spell. Actually, could it be possible to change the effect from healing to some kind of buff? If I could make buffs that'd be so useful, plus I could try to do it in reverse to make debut. Midoriya Koen, stop muttering. My 8th period teacher yelled at me. Sorry, I said. I'm about to stop doing that, I thought. A few minutes later, the bell rang, and I was finally free to go to the beach and work on my skills. I concentrated on my glowing hand as I hauled the tire over to the edge of the beach. The mana, and it was primed to flow into the body of whoever I touched it with, giving them life, energy. I felt that power, concentrated on it, then forced it to invert. Ping! A skill has been created through special action. By reversing the effects of Healing Hands, the skill Draining Hands has been created. Draining Hands, active LV, 1, EXP 0%, MP 50. The power of a greedy soul to take life force from a victim's body, converting it to mana. 50 HP drained, removes minor positive conditions. Any HP drained by this skill is added to the user's MP. The user can choose to gain any effects removed by this skill. I stared at the ominous purple glow that my hand had taken. It wasn't the best skill, what with the fact that it cost as much as it healed, but I was sure I could train it up so that it was better. What's that, young Midoriya? All Might asked. He was sitting on a folding chair in his civilian form nearby. I just made a life-draining skill for my healing skill. I told him I wanted to test out a hypothesis that I had. I guess now I could use this on myself to train my healing hand skill. Of course, that's a good idea. Just make sure to keep an eye on your HP and don't use it on others unless you have to. I wasn't planning on it, I said hastily. I was, however, planning on seeing if I could make new skills from healing hands. I'm going to try to do something else that I thought of. I canceled the draining hands and switched back to healing hands. I'll let the mana build up and concentrate, then thought of something. If I'm using this much mana, then I can properly stabilize it into projectile form, like with Mana Bolt. Having a ranged healing skill would be even better than a touched base one. I made a few modifications, then said, "Can I test out a skill on you? It shouldn't do any damage." "Sure, but could you please be careful just in case?" I nodded, then shot a pulse of green light from my hand at All Might, causing him to glow slightly green for a second. Thankfully, he didn't appear to be hurt. "Ping, you have made a new skill. What will you name it?" "Regeneration," I said. "Regeneration active LV1 EXP 0% MP 200. A skill that causes the target's body to heal itself over time. Target regains 5 HP every second for 2 minutes. Skill can be fired with a range of 10 m with an additional 10 MP. It worked," I shouted. "Ping, I stopped working." "Huh. For creating multiple skills, you have received the title Skilled Gamer." "What's wrong, young Midoriya?" All Might asked. "I just got a title." "Hang on, let me see something." I opened my status screen. My title was still the gamer, but now there was an arrow on the box with my title, like when you can click on the box to bring up more options. I pressed the arrow, and it showed a box that had 2 titles, the Gamer and Skilled Gamer. It seems like I can get new titles by doing certain things. I'm going to see if it has some sort of bonus or something. I observed both of the titles. The Gamer. The first title bestowed upon the one with the power of the gamer. Has no special effects. Skilled Gamer. The title given to a gamer who likes to make new skills. 15% bonus to skill experience. And? All Might asked. I equipped Skilled Gamer. The title that I just got gives me more skill experience, and my original title, which will be the default title, did nothing. I'll probably get more titles with different effects by doing significant enough things, which means that I could get even more skills. That's excellent, young Midoriya, but for now could you get back to work? It seems that that's all that is for now, so you should continue with your training. I picked the tire back up. Of course. I remembered the other skills that I wanted to make. I concentrated on regeneration, but this time, instead of making the mana heal, I tried to make it reinforce the body. It clicked, and I applied it to myself. A blue light spread over my body, and I felt the protection come over me. You have made a new skill. What would you like to call it? Defense Up. Defense Up Active LV1 EXP 0% MP 150. A skill that uses mana to defend the target's body. Reduces damage taken by 5% for 2 minutes. Skill can be fired with a range of 10 m with an additional 10 MP. I nodded to myself. This will be useful. I should probably make other buffs to go with it. I concentrated. You have made a new skill. What would you like to call it? Attack Up Active LV1 EXP 0% MP 150. A skill that uses mana to strengthen the target's offensive power. Increases damage dealt by 5% for 2 minutes. Skill can be fired with a range of 10 m with an additional 10 MP. You have made a new skill. What would you like to call it? Speed Up Active LV1 EXP 0% MP 150. A skill that uses mana to increase the target's speed. Increases movement and attack speed by 5% for 2 minutes. Skill can be fired with a range of 10 m with an additional 10 MP. Through the creation of multiple complex skills, your INT has increased by 1. I grinned. Even if it would be a drain on my mana to keep them all up simultaneously, the fact that I had them meant that I could increase my stats if I ever needed to, plus I could buff others. Not to mention, the fact that they had an alternate casting mode meant that they might have the potential to get more casting modes, which would be extra useful. Still, even with these buffs, it might be good to also have debuffs just in case. Just like with Draining Hands, I inverted the mana effects to see if I could make them into debuffs. You have made a new skill. What would you like to call it? Defense Down Active LV1 EXP 0% MP 150. A skill that uses mana to weaken the target's body. Increases damage taken by 5% for 2 minutes. Skill can be fired with a range of 10 with an additional 10 MP. You have made a new skill. What would you like to call it? Attack down active LV 1 EXP 0% MP 150. You have made a new skill. What would you like to call it? Speed down active LV 1 EXP 0% MP 150. I think I'm good on buffs and debuffs for the moment, I said. What should I work on now? Suddenly, the BGM changed to Kaken's image song, followed by Kaken greeting me. Sup, Deku? We gonna talk now? He asked as he ran up to me. Ah, young Bakugo. Welcome back, All Might said. What did you need to talk about, Kaken? I asked. He grinned, then held up his hand. He made a small explosion, the fire of which somehow stayed after the explosion ended. The fire grew, then swirled down to the ground beside Kaken, where it condensed into the form of a young girl. I gasped. What? Kaken grinned wider. You remember what you said about how you felt like other people should be able to use mana and stuff? I just proved you were right. Kaken, that's amazing. I exclaimed. The implications of this. You might have just revolutionized everything. I know I'm awesome. Deku, you don't need to tell me what I already know, Kaken said smugly. Honestly, I think he was underselling what he did, if anything. We both turned our heads to see the source of a noise. All Might was standing there, his mouth wide open and vital fluid pouring out. I quickly walked over to him and used healing hands on him. Thank you, young Midoriya. Young Bakugo, it seems that you've discovered that anyone can, with enough practice, use magic. This is something that I'm going to have to call in. You two don't have to worry about anything, though. For now, why don't the two of you get acquainted with your elemental powers? Right, I said. I summoned Halidus to my side. This is Halidus, as you know. What's her name? Hello, the fire elemental said. My name is Pyra. I'm pleased to meet you, Midoriya-san, Halidus-san. She gave a small curtsy. Greetings, Halidus said. My name is Halidus. Kaken smirked. Hey, Deku, want to have a spar using only elemental spells? He asked. Sure, Kaken, I said. We got on opposite ends of the part of the beach that we'd cleared away for sparring matches. Let's begin, I said. Kaken immediately lifted his hand up so that his palm faced me. An orangey glow began to come from his hand, and a ball of fire erupted from it and shot at me. I had Halidus block it with a small vacuum, causing it to snuff out mid-flight. What was that? I asked. How did I figure that out first? He asked. Use your affinity on your mana, dumbass. I blinked, then slapped my forehead. Of course I could do that. I held my other hand at him and gathered air, charged mana. I shot a small ball of pressurized air at him, a pop-up telling me that I'd gotten the skill air shot. Now you're getting it. He yelled excitedly. He shot a volley of fireballs at me, which I dodged some of and had Halidus block the rest. Before I could breathe a sigh of relief, I got a notification from Sense Danger that reminded me that Kaken also had an elemental, a fire elemental, and I just let him light a fire. I dodged out of the way of the lances of flame that shot at me from where the fireballs hit the ground. I needed to increase my speed, but I couldn't use speed up because it wasn't elemental. As I used an air shot to blow the fire back, I got an idea. I gathered some air mana and let it spread over my body, combining with it. A skill has been created through a special action. Unifying the body with nature's power has created the skill Elemental Aura to empower oneself with the elements. Elemental Aura active LV 1 EXP 0% MP 100. The combining of one's body with elemental power grants abilities according to that element. Power changes as the caster's INT, WIS, skill level, and elemental affinity grow. Only possible for those attuned to the elements. Additional 100 MP used per minute. Air Aura increases movement speed by 30%, increases jump height by 15%, increases DX by 10%. User can generate wind and expend more MP to increase wind generation. I felt myself speed up as a green glow spread across my body. Unlike with speed up, the glow didn't stop after I cast the skill because it was still active. I charged toward Kaken. A combination of my running and the wind I was generating, creating a cloud of sand behind me that smothered and blocked the flames. I threw a punch at him before he could get the chance to cast any more spells. Caught my fist with one hand, then started laughing maniacally. Ha 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 ha. That was a good one, Izuku. I blinked. Did he just use my real name? Let me guess, you cloaked your body in air mana to give yourself some sort of elemental boost. Huh? He chuckled a bit. Then his grin grew to a toothy smile. Is this what it feels like to be proud of someone else? I'm gonna have to step up my game if you keep pulling things like this, you know? How about I start? As he said that, a fiery glow began to envelop his body, and I could feel sweltering heat from his hand. With that, he threw my hand back and punched me in the chest, making me fly back farther than I'd have thought he could. While I was staggered, he darted forwards with a speed I could barely see, then started pummeling me when he got to me. I couldn't find any openings, but then I had an idea. I overcharged my air aura, causing it to explode in a burst of wind that sent Kakin flying back. A skill has been created through a special action. By overcharging the skill Elemental Aura to the point of explosion, the skill Elemental Burst has been created. Elemental Burst active LV1, EXP 0%, MP 200. The power of the elements can be too much for one to handle in great enough amounts. This skill turns that weakness into a strength by generating a burst of elemental mana. Elemental Burst is strengthened if used while Elemental Aura is active, but destroys Elemental Aura when used. I dropped to the ground as Kakin was sent flying. Air obviously wouldn't work on Kakin's fire aura, so I needed to use something else. I concentrated on the sand beneath my fingers, feeling it interact with my mana. Earth Affinity 10. I grinned. Kakin didn't specify that I had to use air magic, just elemental magic. I looked at my mana, seeing that it was still high enough for a fight. I cloaked myself in earth mana the same way I'd used air aura. Earth aura decreases damage taken by 30%, increases damage dealt by 15%, increases VIT by 10%. User can generate shockwaves and expend more MP to increase shockwave force. This time, the mana that enveloped me was brown and cream colored, like desert camouflage. As soon as I was done, Kakin came rushing at me again and threw a punch at me with a ki. This time, I blocked it with my arm, causing him to wince as his fist met my hardened skin. I punched him in the gut in return, which knocked the wind out of him. I took a step forward as I backhanded him, the combination of the shockwave and the strike knocking him over. He did a move that looked almost like he was breakdancing when he hit the ground, except he generated a wave of fire with the sweeping movements as he got up. I stomped, sending up a wave of sand in front of me to block the fire. It gave me an idea, so I used earth mana to compress some of the sand into rocks, which gave me a pop-up that said that I got the skill rock throw. I shot the rocks at Kakin so that he had to dodge them instead of charge at me again. As he dodged, I ran toward him. He saw me and smirked as he began to run towards me. When we met, we both punched each other in the face, knocking each other down. We groaned simultaneously. Draw? Kakin asked. Draw, I agreed. I placed my hand on his chest and started to heal him. Before you say anything about not needing it, I need to practice with healing hands with every opportunity to make it more powerful. That's fine, he said. He was quiet for a moment, then said, I really am sorry, Izuku, without any of the usual prickliness in his voice. I was so startled at him using my real name that I almost shot him in the chest with a mana bolt. I sat upright. Did you just use my real name, Kakin? Of course I did, he said. He didn't sit up, but just stared at me. I'm trying to be serious. Yeah, I was trying to get you to give up on being a hero because I didn't want to see you get hurt, but that doesn't excuse how much of an idiot I was about it. He slammed his fist into the sand. I just got so angry when I thought about you getting hurt doing things like that, and I took it out on you. That was shitty of me, Izuku. He sighed. I must be the worst at being a hero. It's okay, Kakin, I told him. Yeah, it sucked, and yeah, nothing will change the fact that you did it, but at least now we can move forward and work on our problems together. I smiled at him. Also, I'm pretty sure that the title of the worst at being a hero goes to Endeavor. Kakin cackled at that. Good one, Izuku. I needed to hear that. You can call me Deku if you want to, Kakin, I offered. I don't mind. The name's actually kind of grown on me. Whatever you say, Deku. He got up and did a few stretches. Now, let's blow some of this junk up. He punctuated his statement with a blast of his quirk. Actually, I said as I got up, I had an idea that I want to test out. I held out my hand and concentrated. If I could make a shield out of mana, then why couldn't I make a sword? The mana built up and solidified, forming a katana made blue mana. Bound Blade, active LV, 1, EXP 0%, MP 50. Weaponry is certainly useful, but may not always be readily available. This skill allows the user to forge weapons from their own mana. This skill can only be used by those with excellent control over their mana. Extra 50 MP used per minute per weapon. Max number of weapons, 1. Did you just make a sword out of mana, Deku? Kakin asked. That's pretty cool. I nodded, then concentrated on the sword. Maybe I could add elemental mana to it. I muttered. I turned my air aura on, then made it extend to my sword. Elemental weaponry active LV, 1 EXP, 0%, MP 50. The body is not the only thing that can be empowered by the elements. This skill allows the user to give the armaments they wield the power of the elements. Additional 50 MP used per minute. Air Aura increases cutting power by 30%, increases attack speed by 30%, allows user to generate wind from weapons, as with Air Aura. Earth Aura increases striking power by 30%, increases shock absorption by 30%, allows user to generate shock waves from weapons, as with Earth Aura. I sped toward a nearby fridge and cut through it like it was made of butter. 2 pop-ups told me that I'd gotten the skills Sword Mastery and Power Strike. Hell yeah, Kakin yelled. That's the sort of thing that makes me regret ever thinking you couldn't be a hero, Deku. I smiled. Thanks, Kakin. If you want, I could try teaching you some of my spells and see how good you are at them. The massive grin he gave was all I needed to know that he'd take me up on that offer. A few days after Kakin revealed he could use magic, All Might got back to us about whatever he had to do about the fact that we discovered that magic existed. Apparently, he'd had to contact some government higher-ups, though he didn't go into too much detail about it. If anyone's discovered magic before you two, whoever did it kept it secret, he told us. The official ruling is that magic and quirk usage are legally synonymous for the purposes of public quirk usage laws. Additionally, you two are totally allowed to teach other people magic, but the suggestion is to only allow people who can be trusted with that power to learn about it, for obvious reasons. I've been asked to tell you that they need some notes from the both of you about the details regarding magic, like how to use it. Some scientists are going to do some serious research on the subject. We agreed to do what he asked. Aside from that, we went on as normal training for Yui. Kakin decided to focus more on practicing his magic with some physical workouts. I mostly did conditioning for one for all while training what magic I could at night and occasionally during the day, plus constantly having Halidus out to level grind summon basic elemental without having to put in any actual effort. Aside from that, I decided that while I would only have as many elementals as my skills level would allow me to have out of time, I should at least have the affinities for the other 2 elements just in case. Getting water had been as simple as just sticking my hands in the ocean until I got it, but I couldn't figure out how to safely get fire affinity. Kakin smacked me on the head when I suggested just layering up buffs and then sticking my hand into a fire while using healing hands until Kakin had the bright idea to have me see if I could use Pyra instead of fire. Despite the fact that Pyra was made of fire in her fully summoned state, she would only burn things if she wanted to and was just warm to the touch when she didn't. I felt a little weird placing my palm on her forehead, but it did get me fire affinity. I found that Fire Aura gave me a 30% boost to attack damage, a 15% boost to movement speed, a 10% STR bonus, and the ability to generate heat. Water Aura, interestingly enough, gave me a 30% increase to magical defense, a 15% increase to magical attack, a 10% INT bonus, and the ability to both condense water from the atmosphere and generate it with MP. Their respective elemental weaponry skills gave similar bonuses. While I did occasionally use elemental aura in my physical training to see how they affected my abilities, I mostly just used my natural strength in the hope that that'd be the best for upping my VIT. It took most of the 10 months before the entrance exams, but eventually, Through rigorous exercise, your VIT has increased by 1. Congratulations! The quest Roaring Muscles was completed. Completion rewards. 1 for all speak to Tashinori, 5,000 EXP, 5,000 skill fragments, increased closeness with Bakugo, increased closeness with Tashinori. Your level has increased by 1. X3. I got my VIT up to 50. I looked at my stats. Strength, 44. Vitality, 50. Dexterity, 46. Intelligence, 73. Wisdom, 69. Luck, 49. I grinned. Most of my stats were either already past the 50 benchmark already or close enough that I could hopefully get them up to it within the next 2 months. But first I had to do something. All Might. I called out. What is it, young Midoriya? He asked, currently in his civilian form. I got my VIT to 50. He switched to his hero form, then gave his trademark grin. That's great, young Midoriya. Now I can pass my power on to you. About that, I said. How do you pass your power on to someone? You see, he pulled off a piece of his hair and said, for you to receive my power, you have to eat my hair. What the? Kakin asked as he walked over from the inferno that he'd made, with the fire dying down as soon as he left it. Why the hell does Deku have to eat your hair? I can pass my quirk on to someone through making them eat my DNA. I feel that the best thing to use for that is my hair. I gulped, then took the hair that he offered me. Down the hatch. I muttered, then placed the hair in my mouth. It was hard to swallow, so I used the first step of a water spell that I'd made, water gun, to condense some water from the air to wash it down. I shuddered when I'd finished the water and, thankfully, the hair. That was a little unpleasant. I still remember how weird it was when I had to do it. All Might commiserated. Now we just have to wait a few hours for your new quirk to come, young Midoriya. Why doesn't it come automatically? Kakin asked. Does it have to digest first? I theorized. And maybe the quirk factor has to take time to grow, and even after it I was cut off my ping. A skill has been created by gaining the power of All Might. By having All Might pass his quirk to you, the skill 1 for all has been created. 1 for all active and passive LV, 1 EXP, 0%. When quirks first started to come into existence, there was chaos. In that chaos, one man born with the power to take the quirks of others and give them to others or use them for himself took advantage of the situation to amass power. This man had a brother who was born with a rather underwhelming ability to pass his quirk, the ability to pass his quirk on to another. While it is unknown whether it was out of malice or compassion, the man forced the quirk power stockpile onto his brother, and from the combination of the two quirks, the quirk known as 1 for all was born. Skill grants the user a second MP bar. When skill is not in use, this second MP bar fills over time when the first MP bar is filled, using the same MP regeneration rate. This second MP bar has no upper limit. When activated, user can draw upon the second MP bar in place of the natural one. User can expend MP to increase the power of most stats and skills. Wah! I exclaimed. What is it, young Midoriya? All Might ask me. I just got 1 for all. I think that my quirk sped up the process of me getting 1 for all, which actually makes sense when you think about it. In most games, whatever effect food and other edible things have is applied immediately, despite how it would logically require time to digest. I guess that also means that I can use food too. Wait, that's not everything. I looked once more at the description. It was weird. The skill felt a little more complicated than what it said. Aside from that, the description of the skill states that it was made by someone with a quirk that can steal other people's quirks and give them to others. Do you know anything about that? I asked. All Might sighed. Sit down, the both of you. This will be a shock. Kakin and I sat down on the sand, as All Might sat on his chair. That man was called All for One. He was probably the most dangerous villain in the history of the world. He gained many followers in the early years of quirks thanks to his abilities. Thankfully, his own brother, the first bearer of 1 for all, disagreed with him and stopped him. Unfortunately, however, All for One survived and, I'm assuming, took some form of life-extending quirk. I know this because he was the reason why I got this wound 5 years ago. I'd like to say that he's dead, but we never found the body, so we can't say for sure. I didn't say anything. I couldn't say anything. Even with the gamer's mind, it was a lot to take in. I think that if I could have said anything, it would have been exactly what Kakin was saying. That's F. I understand if you have reservations, All Might said. I hope that this wouldn't come up just yet. I wanted you to have a school experience unmarred by worry about All for One. Kakin scoffed. Well, maybe you still should have said something about that thing before Deku ate your gross hair, dumbass. It's fine, Kakin, I said. I was already prepared to be a hero, so learning that I already have an arch-nemesis isn't that bad. I'm still going to need some time to process this, but for now. I got up and walked over to an area where there was only a stretch of sand, so as to avoid collateral damage. I've always wanted to do this. I cocked my arm back. Detroit. Energy flowed through my whole arm, and for some reason I got a sense danger warning. That really should have been a red flag in hindsight. Smash! I punched the air, the simple force of it causing a shockwave that sent sand flying. It wasn't as strong as All Might's, but it was still a Detroit smash. My excitement was almost immediately destroyed by the fact that my arm felt like I'd punched the sound barrier, which I had. System warning. Using One for All at full power is inadvisable in current condition. Usage should be limited to lower power. Level up skill to decrease damage taken. The level of the skill, physical endurance, has increased by 1. I looked at my health, then winced and activated healing hands and regeneration. I think that my body still isn't completely up to the task of using One for All yet, I said. My health dropped about a quarter from that one punch. I think that I should probably train my physical stats a bit more in the next 2 months, as well as One for All practice. That might be for the best. Deku, you better not break yourself in half. Kakin scolded. Yes, I would prefer that you not kill yourself, young Midoriya. That would be bad, All Might agreed. If that's the case, then you should get back to work. I stared at the school. It was huge. I got the vaguest feeling that if not for Gamer's mind, I would have been shaking. We're here, I said. Yup, Kakin said with a toothy grin. It'd suck pretty hard if you screwed up now, and got no points at all, huh? I looked at him. Sometime during the last 2 months of training, his title had changed in addition to the levels and points of INT and WIS he'd gained. Art is an explosion. LV 27. Katsuki Bakugo. I doubt I'll get 0 points, Kakin, I said. My stats are all above 50, and INT and WIS are both approaching 100. I'm probably the most powerful person taking the exams, and that's not even counting One for All. It had taken a tremendous amount of effort, but I felt great about myself for managing to get all of the 50-point skills before the UE entrance exam. The skill Heroic Strength has been created through STR rising above 50. Heroic Strength, passive LV2 EXP 2.14%. Some are endowed with the strength to move mountains. This skill grants enhanced physical ability. 10% increase to STR. 10% increase to physical attack. 50% increase to strength-based skill effects. The skill Iron Body has been created through VIT rising above 50. Iron Body passive LV5 EXP 7.21%. Some are bestowed with the vitality to endure any punishment. This skill grants enhanced physical durability. 10% increase to VIT. 10% increase to HP. 50% increase to HP-based skill effects. The skill Fleet Foot has been created through DX rising above 50. Fleet Foot passive LV3 EXP 3.21%. Some are bestowed with the speed to rival the wind. This skill grants enhanced swiftness. 10% increase to DX. 10% increase to movement speed. 50% increase to DEX-based skill effects. The skill Born Lucky has been created through LUC rising above 50. Born Lucky passive LV1 EXP 87.56%. Luck can be a very fickle thing. This skill is bestowed upon those who luck favors. 10% increase to LUC. 10% increase to loot drops. 50% increase to LUC-based skill effects. Kakin scoffed. Like I'll let you just take that title without a fight, he said, lightly punching me on the shoulder. It's a contest then. I smiled. Let's see who gets the most points. I feel really good about this, I mentally exclaimed. Then I tripped. Or not. Before I could even have Halidus to try to stop my fall, I just stopped. I felt odd, like gravity had stopped working on me. Sorry for using my quirk on you without asking, a female voice said, but I thought that you might not like going through your exams with a broken nose. Someone pulled me into a position where I wouldn't fall, then gravity reasserted itself on me, and I landed on my feet. I hope that's okay, she said. I turned to see a cute brown-haired girl with rosy cheeks and a bright smile. Space Kid, LV-19, Uraraka, Ochaco. Oh no, it's fine, I said. I probably would have just frozen up and blurted out nonsense words if I didn't have gamer's mind. I used to get really nervous when first meeting attractive people like that. So your quirk is some sort of gravity manipulation power, right? Yeah, she said, then showed me one of her hands, or rather the pads on the ends of her fingers. I can make objects weightless if I touch them with these things. It makes me all kinds of nauseous if I use it too much, though. Even with that, it seems like a really powerful and useful quirk, I said. You'll probably be a great hero. She beamed. Thanks. I'm Uraraka Ochaco, by the way. Are you two here for the hero course too? Kaken did that thing where he punches his fist into his other palm and makes an explosion to look cool. Yup, Deku and I are going to dominate this thing, so you'd better watch out. I sighed. Kaken, could you please be nice to someone who could be our future classmate? She laughed. It's nice to meet you two. I'll see you two in the hero course. Then she ran off. A few moments later, Kaken exasperatedly said, Son of a... She only knows me as Kaken now. We have to get to our exams. Kaken, I reminded him. Yeah, he sighed. The written exams were. Well, I suppose they were difficult, but my INT was so high that I breezed through them. After that, all of the hero course students had to attend a presentation by Present Mike about what the practical exams would be like. The answer was robot fighting, apparently. During the explanation, a boy stood up to ask a question and decided to scold me for muttering as well. That was embarrassing. After that, they escorted us to the fake cities where we'd be taking the exams. Unfortunately, Kaken was sent to a different training ground than me, probably because they didn't want people who know each other working together. Present Mike announced that we'd have a few minutes to get ready for the exam, then clarified that that meant things like stretching, but also things like preparing our quirks. At that moment, I got a new quest. A quest has been created. Start line. The UE entrance exams include a 10-minute mock battle against robots. Get as many combat points as you can. Optional objectives. Destroy the zero-pointer. Completion. 100 EXP per combat point. 100 skill fragments per combat point. Optional. 2,500 EXP. 2,500 skill fragments. Failure. You don't get any combat points. Decreased closeness with Bakugo. I readied up my buffs, holding them so that I could use them the moment the exam started, but also regenerate my MP and use one for all to charge them up. As I looked over the crowd, I saw Uraraka. I started to walk over to her to thank her for earlier when I felt a hand on my shoulder. What do you think you're doing? I turned around to see the boy who scolded me earlier in a tight-fitting shirt that really showed off his muscles, unlike my tracksuit. He also appeared to have engines in his calves, which was probably his quirk. She appears to be getting ready for the mock battle. You could tell from his voice alone that he was really strict. Were you going to use your quirk on her to soften up the competition? He looked at my left hand. I looked at the 4 balls of colored light in my hand. That probably looked bad, didn't it? It's not what it looks like, I blurted. He raised an eyebrow. The balls are for me, not her. I clarified. He was actually really intimidating. His face softened up a bit, then he bowed at a 90-degree angle. My apologies, he said, then came up. What were you going to do with her, then? I tripped earlier and she caught me. I don't think it would have been too bad thanks to my quirk, but I wanted to thank her anyways, I explained. He nodded. I took a look at his name. Class President. LV-24. Ida Tenya. I see, he said. I apologize for my harsh tone. It seemed at first that you were trying to distract the others. I would have said something to him, but before I could, Present Mike yelled, "Go!" and a timer appeared on my UI, counting down from 10 minutes. Everyone went quiet and started staring at him. What are you standing there for, listeners? You don't get countdowns in real life. Start already. I panicked a bit, then popped my speed up and started using Air Aura. I dashed off into the mock city as fast as I could, looking at my mini-map as I did. Now that the exam was starting, the robots were appearing as red dots on it. "Halidus Dune," I muttered. My air elemental appeared, and next to him was my new earth elemental. I'd made her only a month ago. She had a very different style of clothing from the other two elementals I'd seen, with what looked like some sort of military desert camouflage uniform and a pair of goggles pushed up on her hair. She had short, sandy blonde hair and dark brown skin that reminded me of rich soil. "Point me to where the most robots are," I told them. As I did, Ida ran up to me. "A fellow speedster, I see," he exclaimed over the wind. "I look forward to seeing what you can do if you get into the hero course." Before I could say anything to him, he got even faster and dashed off. A few moments later, my elementals pointed me to a street where there were a lot of robots. I used the attack up, defense up, and regeneration that I've been saving for encounter, then made a katana with bound blade and used Air Aura on it. Air seemed like it'd be the best for the mock battle because the speed bonuses meant that I could rack up a lot of points quickly. I proved myself right when I charged at the robots, carving through most of them in seconds. When there were only a few left, I shot my hand out at them and made a crushing motion, causing them to crumple like tin cans as Dune and Halidus combined their powers to destroy them with a combination of increased air pressure and their own armor pressing in on them. "That was so awesome," I muttered. I dropped my Air Aura and dissipated my bound blade to let my mana fill back up. I'd already gotten 29 points and 2 level ups in the span of. I checked the timer. 2 minutes. "I'm doing great," I exclaimed. As I ran to the next hot spot, a one-pointer surprised me by jumping out of the wall like an evil Kool-Aid man. I yelped, then pulled out my sword to slice at it. The robot managed to almost dodge my swing, ending up with me only chopping off its toe. Before I could utterly wreck it with a spell, a laser beam came out of nowhere and decimated it, resulting in me getting some, but not all, of the experience points from the kill. I turned to where the beam of light came from. Merci, a pretty boy was he. Sparkling, with blonde hair and a strange-looking belt set. "You and I make a great team, monsieur. You seem like excellent bait for less robots." He then ran off, likely in search of more robots. I decided to let it not bother me due to the exams being a bit of a competition, and instead just continued on, destroying the robots I saw. I decided to use ranged skills to destroy them from a distance. Air slash. I yelled. A blade of air shot at the three-pointer, cutting its head off. Fireball. The next robot I found was exploded and melted. Water gun. The third robot was pierced by a bullet made of water, its delicate insides soaked into uselessness. It continued on like that for a while until I found where most of the fighting probably occurred. Robot remains were everywhere. As I watched, Ida kicked a robot with his engine leg so hard that it just stopped working, and Uraraka pressed her fingers together, releasing a bunch of robots to the cruel rain of gravity. It looked like everyone was resting before splitting up to find more points. I was about to leave when the ground started shaking. A towering, building-sized robot, the zero-pointer, rose up from the ground and started thrashing about. It goes without saying that this caused everyone to panic and run away. I was about to join them when I heard a familiar voice cry for help. I saw Uraraka trapped under a rock, with the zero-pointer coming closer. It wasn't even a question what I should do next. I ran as fast as I could, using Air Aura and another speed up to replace the one that ran out. As I ran, I used an attack up, defense up, and regeneration on myself, then shot another defense up and regeneration at Uraraka, just in case. When I was close enough, I jumped, using a barely harnessed air burst combined with some one for all to send me flying skyward. As I rose, I felt the glow of one for all rise up in my arm, and I let it go full force, even added to it with some air mana. Because it was supposed to be a secret that I had All Might's quirk, I didn't shout any of All Might's attack names. Instead, when I wounded my punch, I shouted limit. I punched at the robot with all my might. Break. The rush of air slammed into the zero-pointer, hitting it so hard that its face crumpled in. The zero-pointer toppled backward from the force of the punch. Your level has increased by 1. X7. I didn't feel as bad as last time, but it still hurt. I began to fall and gulped when I saw how far away the ground was. I really didn't want to know what would happen if my already low HP hit 0. I immediately activated Healing Hands, hoping to get my HP up enough that I wouldn't die upon hitting the ground. When I was closer to the ground, I made a sword and shield with Bound Blade. I crossed my metaphorical fingers and tried to use Earth Aura on myself and the shield while using Air Aura on the sword. It worked. Before I could begin the next phase of my plan, try to make a delayed air burst on the sword and then throw it at the ground, though someone slapped me on the cheek, and I felt myself become immune to gravity's pull for the second time that day. I stopped within half a meter of the ground and deactivated my skills as Uraraka released her quirk. Thank goodness, she said sickly as the robot part that she was on touchdown. I was afraid you'd. She started barfing before she could finish her sentence. Thanks, Uraraka, I said. I jumped up to her and used Healing Hands on her. I wasn't sure if my plan would work or not, so that was a relief. She bolted upright as my skill began to take effect. I don't feel nauseous anymore, she remarked as she wiped her mouth off with a wet wipe she pulled from her pocket. She turned to look at me with excitement in her eyes. Can you heal people with your quirk? I nervously rubbed behind my head. I guess you could say that. That's awesome. Thanks for getting rid of my nausea, by the way. Her smile was infectious. Time's up, folks. Present Mick's voice blared over the speakers. Eep. I forgot about the exam, Uraraka said. We both sighed and sat down on the robot. It's too late to do anything now. How many points did you get, by the way? I counted the robots I fought up for a moment. 38, I said. I got 29, she sighed. I hope that that's enough to get in the hero course. You're totally going to get in, though. She paused for a moment. I don't think I got you or your friend's name, just nicknames. Yeah, I said. I'm Midoriya Izuku. My friend's name is Bakugo Katsuki. Those are nicknames we've had for each other for a while. She smiled. Great to meet you then, Midoriya. Are either of you two hurt? Someone asked. I looked down to see an old woman with a syringe-shaped cane. Recovery girl, I said. I looked at my HP to see if I was hurt, then jumped off the robot part. I'm fine, thanks. I'm good too, Uraraka said, and jumped off as well. It's cool seeing a pro like you. Recovery girl nodded and then gave us some gummies. Neither of you look hurt, though I suggest the two of you go to the doctor if anything starts hurting. Eat those one at a time. They'll help you recover your strength. Thanks, Uraraka said. As Recovery Girl walked off to treat the other examinees, Uraraka turned to me and said, Can you believe we just met Recovery Girl? I know, right? I exclaimed. I should probably go now, but I hope I see you in the hero course. Bye, she said. I waved to her as I left. Do you think I'll make it? I fretted. I knew I got a lot of points, but I couldn't help but worry I might not get in. At least completing the quest had made my level go up from 18 to 20. GUH. A sigh cut into my worrying. I turned to see an incorporeal Dune lying down on my bed and fiddling with an ethereal sniper rifle that I have no idea where she got. She was really fond of the rifle for some reason, so I just asked her to just not have it out when she's visible. You do realize that you got like 40 points, right, Master? She asked, then pointed her rifle at me. And I'd eat my rifle if you didn't get any bonus points for saving that one girl with the gravity hands. Disagree with harshness, Halidus muttered from where he was sitting on my desk. Agree with sentiment. Yeah, so stop worrying, Dune told me. Maybe you should look in that magic book of yours to calm yourself down. I nodded. I had 11,300 skill fragments, which really wasn't anything to sneeze at. I pulled out my skill grimoire to see if there was anything that I might want to buy. Only one really stuck out to me that I didn't think I could figure out without the book, a skill called Illusion Barrier. It said something about letting me make enemies, which seemed like it might be useful. At least, it seemed like it could be a good way to level up, especially that part where it said that I could make monsters. I was only level 20 despite my stats being higher than even Kakin's, so leveling for me seemed to only work from fighting and quests, which meant that getting the bonuses to HP and MP for each level up would be a little difficult without easy access to enemies. Plus, it wasn't really that expensive at 500 SF. I clicked it, pressed yes on the confirmation, then dismissed the book when I was done. I frowned as I looked over the new skill in my mind. That's odd, I muttered. What? Halidus asked. The way the skill is performed, I don't really get how it does what it does, I answered, then thought for a moment. Though to be fair, I'm pretty new to magic. Well? Dune asked. Use it. She'd sat up and was looking at me expectantly. I did as she asked it. Nothing seemed to happen, aside from a slight drop in MP. To be fair, I'd used the empty setting because I didn't want to be immediately attacked by monsters, but I was expecting at least something. I looked around to see if my room was any different, but couldn't spot anything. Still, though, something fell off. Update, Halidus muttered. There's something weird here, Izuku, Dew added nervously. What's wrong, I asked. Everyone's gone, Halidus stated. What? I asked. They vanished when you use your new skill, Dune clarified. I looked at my mini-map and saw that the dots that symbolized other people had just gone. I looked outside. Even the animals were gone. I ran downstairs to see that Mom had just vanished in the middle of cooking dinner, as evidenced by the unattended food. I really hope that this is just illusion barrier, I muttered before dropping the skill. To my relief, I saw Mom standing there after a layer of reality seemed to shatter and drop away. Ah, she shouted. You scared me, Izuku. She blinked and then asked, Did you just teleport, sweetie? Sorry, I apologized. That wasn't exactly teleportation, but I thought for a moment. Can I test something? I asked. Sure, sweetie, but could you please explain what's going on? I nodded. I got a new skill called Illusion Barrier, and I want to see if it works like I think it works, I explained, then pointed to a cup on the table. Could you please watch that cup for me? When she nodded, I activated Illusion Barrier, and she disappeared. Or rather, I disappeared, leaving her behind. I immediately took the cup, tossed it into the air, caught it, and canceled Illusion Barrier. The cup shattered along with the skill as I returned to reality. What was I supposed to be looking for? Mom asked. I want to know what would happen to an object that I touch in the Illusion Barrier, I explained. If you didn't see anything, then that means that using it causes me to exist on another layer of reality, which makes the skill useful for so much more than just grinding. I could use it for stealth, hostage rescuing, dodging attacks, and possibly more if I could figure out a way to see the real world within the barrier. I have no idea what you're talking about, honey, but as long as you're being safe, I'm glad, Mom told me. Dinner will be ready soon, so why don't you stay down here? I stared at my skill grimoire, frowning. I wanted to find a way to see through the Illusion Barrier without dropping it, but I didn't really know how. I can't really make skills out of nowhere, I muttered, half to myself and half to my elementals. With the buffs that I'd made, I used the base of Healing Hands and the other skills I was able to make with mana manipulation and perhaps mana affinity thanks to their simplicity. With this, however, I don't know exactly what I'm supposed to do. I figured I wouldn't even need any sort of remote viewing type spell after I got you guys thanks to how useful they are. At this comment, both of my elementals thanked me for the compliment. Even then, I don't even know if modifying remote viewing is even the right thing to use for that. Considering the fact that it's called Illusion Barrier, some form of true sight might be needed. Before I could start figuring out some form of remote viewing or true sight, Mom burst through the door looking really frantic. Izuku, you got a letter from Yui, she said, holding up a letter. I'm not sure, but I feel like at that moment my face matched hers. Oh my gosh, I said, then snatched the letter. Thanks for bringing Thistamame just going to got a maroon to open it to peel telly uawatwent laveabi. I shouted as I rushed to my room. As soon as I closed the door, I ran over to my desk, turned on the lamp, and ripped open the letter. A small, circular device fell out and began to emit light from the top. I gasped when the light projected into a screen showing All Might's smiling face. I'm here in this hologram, he shouted exuberantly. I'm sorry I didn't contact you sooner, young man, but I had paperwork to do. Why are you? I started to ask, then was cut off by All Might continuing, probably because that was a recording and not a holophone. I'm glad you asked, young man. See, I've been hired as a teacher in my alma mater, Yui. A voice that I didn't quite hear came from somewhere off-screen, accompanied by a hand. HM? What's that? I've got to do how many? He turned back to face me. Sorry to cut this short, young man, but I have to make this quick. Not only did you get 38 villain points from the robots you destroyed, but you also got 60 rescue points from saving your fellow examinee for a whopping total of 98. Rescue points? I asked, despite the fact that it was a recording. Why, yes, rescue points. It was the entrance exam for a hero school, was it not? Yes, a student's resolve to rescue others, even if they should lose out on the opportunity to get a few more points, is something that should be rewarded. And you, who was willing to destroy the monstrous zero-pointer to save someone, have shown a heroic spirit that the staff of UE would be remiss to turn away. I started to tear up as his grin grew wider. That's right, Midoriya Izuku. Welcome to your hero academia. I cried tears of joy as the hologram shut off. I let myself cry for a few minutes from the sheer realization that I was going to the school that I'd wanted to get into for almost all of my life, and had been told that I had no chance of ever getting into. When I was done, I dried my eyes and looked over the papers that were in the envelope. Just the standard hero school forms and a letter from the principal congratulating me on how I'd been accepted into UE. I might have teared up some more from that. I signed my parts on the forms and went outside. Mom was standing in front of the door with a nervous look on her face. I smiled, answering the question that was written all over her face. When she was done crying, I handed her the envelope and said, "There's some forms in there that you need to sign and mail back, plus the designs for my hero costume." I signed mine, so I'm going to do some training to make sure that I'm ready for UE. Mom smiled. "Of course, honey. I'm so proud of you. Go do your magic." I looked around from the roof of my house. With everyone gone and the sun down, it looked like a ghost town. The skeletons shambling around really only added to that. After having tested to make absolutely sure that illusion barrier left me completely divorced from reality, and I wouldn't just randomly destroy things from within the barrier, which would be bad, I'd used the other setting, skeletons. While the barrier was completely empty at first, small cracks opened in the ground that each allowed a single skeleton with no equipment to climb out before closing. After just a few minutes of that, skeletons littered the streets in all directions. They weren't very tough, according to Observe, but there were a lot of them, so I bravely retreated to the safety of my roof, where I couldn't climb and didn't seem to want to spawn. You do realize that you're going to have Veda start fighting at some point, right? A now tangible Dune told me as she looked down the scope of her rifle. I nodded. "I'm going to, but I want to try something first." I concentrated on my magic. I might not have been able to automatically find a way to peer through the illusion barrier, but I felt like finding some form of eyesight enhancing skill might have been a good place to start. I channeled magic to my eyes in a similar way to my enhancement skills, making sure to not overload them because I could tell that that wouldn't be pleasant. After a few seconds of careful magic working, my vision blurred and then sharpened to the point where I could hone in on individual details on the closer skeletons and could see the farther skeletons clearly despite it being nighttime. Ping. A skill has been created through a special action. Infusing your eyes with mana has created the skill Hawkeye to enhance vision. Hawkeye active LV1, EXP 0%, MP 50. One's eyesight is an incredibly powerful tool that is to be cherished. This skill allows the user to see with more clarity than normal, greatly enhancing the gift of sight. Additional 50 MP used per minute. The skill wasn't quite what I was looking for, but it felt like a step in the right direction. Even still, the ability to enhance my sight was definitely a useful skill that I wanted to cultivate. But first, did the skill, I just got to do something to my eyes? I asked my elementals. Green glow, Halidus remarked. Larger pupils. I nodded. So using Hawkeye in public is out of the question. That just meant I'd have to get creative. I looked at one of the skeletons that was far away. Could either one of you hit that one skeleton? I asked as I transmitted the image to them. On it, Dune said as she cocked her rifle. The reason why I asked them was because, unlike me, they seemed to not have any drop in MP used for magic anywhere in their range. Unlike me. As I watched the skeleton, I heard her pull the trigger, which somehow caused a spear of rock to protrude out of the ground and at the skeleton, launching its ribcage away and destroying it. I nodded. Hey, how about you try to kill one of them now? She asked. I activated my earth aura in answer, then jumped off the roof to an area that was denser than normal with skeletons and used earth burst when I landed. Bones flew everywhere before dissolving into dust. From that, I got almost half as much SF as I'd spent on Illusion Barrier. Even with Born Lucky, the skeletons weren't worth much EXP and SF thanks to being weak, the highest being at level 5, but there were a lot of them. My sense danger and bloodthirst skills warned me that more skeletons were coming, so I activated Earth Aura again. The cracks in the ground that signaled the skeletons spawning opened up and the bony arm shot out. Before the rest of the skeletons could climb out, I stomped my foot, sending out a shockwave that killed the skeletons before they could even finish spawning. Unfortunately, the large amount of noise I'd made caused the rest of the skeletons to come after me. "Nope," I said, then switched to Air Aura and parkoured back up to my roof. I looked down at the angry mob of skeletons looking up at me expectantly and said, "I really hope that these skeletons are as easy to kill as in Skyrim." I thought for a moment about how to best make an AoE attack without dropping down there again to use Elemental Burst. I held my hands out and condensed air mana in the same way that I made Spiral Mana Bomb. When it was fully charged, I shot it into the crowd with surprising speed. The new spell, which I called Tornado Bomb, lived up to its name when it made a swirling wave of air so strong that it ripped all of the skeletons apart. As their bones disintegrated, I got 741 SF and another level up. After I dismissed the text boxes, I noticed that their dust wasn't disappearing, just swirling around in the last eddies of the tornado bomb. As I watched, the swirling of the dust picked up speed, then started flying towards the small crater from where the bomb hit. A crack that was much larger than the others opened up, and the dust began to pour inside it. When all of the dust had poured into the crack, a large armored hand shot out of it. A skeleton clad in full samurai armor that was definitely over 2 meters tall climbed out. Spirit of a Fallen Warrior. LV-34. Skeletal Samurai. I gulped. Sure, I had pretty high stats, but this was my first time facing any enemy with such a high level aside from friendly spars with Kakin. The samurai drew his katana and pointed it at me. For a second, I thought about running away, but shook my head and abandoned the thought almost as soon as it came. I'd be a horrible hero if I decided to run from any fight that looked like there was a chance for me to lose. The first thing I did was layer all of my buffs. Using Observe, I noted that it had a low DEX compared to its other stats. I turned Air Aura back on, made a katana of my own, and jumped at the samurai. I managed to land behind him and turned to swing my sword at him, meeting his blade as it came down on me. "Halidus! Dune!" I shouted. Spears of earth shot at the skeleton as the wind picked up and pushed it off of me. While it was off balance, I swung at the elbow of its sword arm, hoping to cut it off. I cut through the armor and the bone, but the arm refused to fall. A quick observe told me that took a small chunk off its health, though. The skeleton swiped at me again, and I jumped backwards before I could be cut. From there, I sent a volley of air slashes at the samurai. They didn't do much, but they did manage to take some more health off, which was a win. I exchanged the air aura on my blade for fire aura and dashed back at the skeleton. We struck swords again, but this time its sword started to glow red from the flames. I willed my fire to grow hotter and slowly cut through the softened metal. When I cut all the way through, I used Power Strike to make my sword swing faster as I chopped into its neck. Like with before, my sword cut through a bone, but didn't disable the skeleton. Probably because it was already in pieces, but still held itself together with magic. Before I could get back, the skeleton cut me with the remnant of its sword. Fortunately, my physical endurance was already almost level 100 from me biting myself over the course of 10 months, so it didn't hurt too much. I jumped back and started to heal myself. The skeleton charged at me, but because it was so slow, I was able to dodge easily and stick my sword in it again. This time I overloaded the fire aura and let go. I jumped back as the fire burst and engulfed the samurai, making use of Hawkeye to keep an eye on it through the flames. Thankfully, the skeleton was almost out of HP, so I just shot mana bolts at it until it died, which was surprisingly effective. When its HP reached 0, it fell over from the force of the last mana bolt and started crumbling. Thankfully, this time the dust actually disappeared, leaving behind a scroll and giving me a level up. I picked up the scroll, which caused a window to appear. You have picked up a skill book for the skill Vacuum Slice. Would you like to learn it? Huh, I said. I guess that this is another form of the skill grimoire, I muttered. Does this mean that illusion barrier is working with my quirk? As I was inspecting it, I vaguely felt something roughly tapping me on the back, but I brushed it off. I guess that was where my confusion was coming from, I mused. It wouldn't be the first skill of mine that works with my quirk, but this is the first time that I know of that a skill was modified. I was tapped on the back again. What is it? I asked as I turned around. I saw a group of skeletons pounding on my back as hard as they could, which apparently wasn't very hard. I checked and saw that I still had defense up and regeneration on for a few more seconds, so I was taking 1 or 2 damage from the hits and just immediately healing it off. Huh, I said. I renewed my buffs to make sure they couldn't do anything to me and switched to Earth Aura, just in case. Because the skeletons couldn't actually hurt me, I learned Vacuum Slice, causing the scroll to dissolve like the words in my skill grimoire. Vacuum Slice actually didn't seem like that bad a skill. It was almost the exact same thing as my Air Slash, but it was an air element and cost less. The only problem was that I could only use it with a sword or some other kind of blade as a medium. It seemed like I could also use it to enhance my sword by not letting go of it. I tested that theory by creating my trusty katana and slicing through the skeletons. I then realized that I had no baseline to how hard a skeleton was to cut with bound blade alone and ran over to another skeleton to cut it. It has let me cut things easier, I muttered. I decided that I was probably okay on fighting skeletons for the night and ducked into a bush so I could switch illusion barriers. Without the skeletons to impede me, I simply walked home. On the way home, I brought up my skill menu to see how my skills were doing. Should water ever rise up to drown you, call me for help, the small girl in blue ninja garb said before melting into water. Of course I will, Rain, I told her. Unlike the last 2 times, I didn't even feel tired. I immediately summoned her back, though. Thanks to Summon Basic Elemental upgrading to Summon Lesser Elemental, she looked like she was about 10 years old, not 8. My other 2 elementals also looked older, and for whatever reason, Dune had gained some gray spots to her camo. Rain had light blue clothing, like Halidus, though she had navy blue as well as sky blue, and her hair was the same colors as her clothes. Her hair was done up in 2 buns with yellow ornaments on them. She had a scarf made of some strange white material that made it look like it was made of sea foam or something, and small white circular sunglasses that didn't cover her eyes at all. Hello again, I said. Hi, she said cheerfully. What do you need me for? She asked, then unsheathed her sword. What the heck? Do you need me to stab anything? Her tone was still totally cheerful, even as she brandished the wave-themed ninja sword she'd pulled out of its sheath on her back. That won't be necessary. I just wanted to talk. I quickly explained. She complained. I wanted to stab something. Weapon buddies. Dune shouted and waved her gun in the air in a way that I didn't even need to know anything about gun safety to know that was the exact opposite of gun safety. Weapon buddies. Rain agreed. She waved her sword around with Dune. I was really glad that I decided to do the ritual in the illusion barrier. I edged over to where Halidus was sitting. I think we should let them finish before we start talking, I said. Yes, he agreed. I trembled with anticipation as I looked at the school from outside the gates. Can you believe it, Kakin? I asked. We're going to Yui, and we're in the same class. Hell yeah, we are. Kakin pumped his fist in the air. Yui, this is our first step as heroes. I exclaimed. Wait, wouldn't our first step as heroes been? First step as heroes, hell yeah. Kakin agreed. It's so manly. A male voice I'd never heard before said. I looked over to see a boy with spiky red hair and a wide, shark-toothed grin, and a girl with pink hair and skin, horns, and very distinctive eyes, both in school uniforms. Are you guys starting the hero course today, too? The pink girl asked. Is it rude to refer to her as the pink girl? I looked up at their titles, so I wouldn't have to call them by nicknames. We will rock you. LV-26. Kirishima, Ijiro. Alien Blood. LV-24. Ashido Mina. Yeah, I said with a smile. We're going to be in Class 1A. What about you guys? Us too, Kirishima said. Let's walk to our homeroom together. As we walked to our homeroom class at Yui, oh my gosh, Ashido said, Hey, what are your guys' names? I'm Ashido Mina, by the way. Kirishima, Ijiro. Kirishima added, My name is Midoriya Izuku. I answered. It's nice to meet you. You're looking at the future #1 hero, Bakugo Katsuki. Kaken boasted. And I guess Deku here will manage to make #1 for a few years before I make my triumphant return, he added. I gasped. Kaken, that's one of the nicest things you've ever said to me. Hey, I just told you my name's Ishido Mina, not Bakugo Katsuki. Ishido interjected with a laugh. When Kaken looked at her with a confused expression. Just kidding. So what about your quirks? If you don't mind me asking, anyway. Mine's acid. I can make this corrosive stuff for my skin that doesn't burn my skin, plus it makes my skin pink for some reason. Maybe the altered pigment is a side effect of whatever makes you resistant to your acid? I theorized. Ishido gave me a carefree shrug. Mine is hardening, Kirishima offered, pointing to himself. I can turn my skin all hard and kind of rocky at will. And yes, I've heard all of the jokes. Explosion, Kaken said with a grin. I sweat what's basically nitroglycerin from my palms and can ignite it at will. I'm also resistant to impacts and fire, which is how I haven't gone deaf or blown my arms off yet. So manly, Kirishima cheered. I haven't even seen it in action, and I can already tell it's super cool looking. Unlike mine, I'm sure yours is perfectly fine, Kirishima, I assured him. He chuckled a bit. Sure, but it's not as flashy as some other quirks. Yeah. Well, my quirk doesn't even hold a candle to the potential BS that is Deku's, but that doesn't mean mine sucks, Kaken roughly interjected. What is your quirk anyway, Midoriya? Ishido asked. I chuckled and rubbed the back of my head. It's a little hard to explain. It's called the Gamer, and it lets him do RPG stuff, like upgrading his stats and leveling up, Kaken explained. Yeah, that's about it, I said. I can also get various skills and then level them up, and I have an inventory that I can put things in and take them out later. Which is pretty BS. How it works, Kaken added. He can shove anything in there, even if he can't even carry it. That's awesome, Ishido said. I smiled. Thanks. I stopped in front of the massive door for Class 1A. Why is it so big? Kirishima asked. It's probably just in case there's someone with a mutant quirk that makes them really big, I explained. I opened the door to see that only about half the class was there. I was glad that Kaken insisted we come early, because I felt like I would have been almost late otherwise. Instead, only about half the class was there, and Kaken and I just calmly walked over some empty desks and took our seats. The first thing that Kaken did after sitting down was to immediately put his feet up on the desk, which made me sigh. Our new teacher might not be as okay with you doing that as our last teacher, Kaken. He just glared at me. And you mumble a lot. Deku, you sure the teach like that? Fair enough. I mumbled and pulled out my skill grimoire to wait for the teacher. You, a familiar voice yelled after a while. I looked up from my book to see that one uptight guy from the exams, Ida. Don't put your feet on the desk. It is disrespectful. I sighed. Well, how about you shut up, teacher's pet, Kaken growled. There it was. I shut my book. Kaken, please don't get in a fight on the first day. Ida, please don't rile Kaken up. He doesn't like it when people order him around like that. Well, he should get used to being ordered around, because this is a school and the teacher will have to order you around. I slumped my head. That did not sound like it'd go over well. Kaken glared at Ida. Deku wasn't talking about teachers. I hate it when I feel like people who don't have any reason to boss me around are looking down on me and all asshat. Ida blinked, then bowed at a 90-degree angle. I apologize for my insensitivity, though I would prefer that you do not use words like that in a school environment. Kaken sighed and put his feet on the ground in a calm manner that I was not at all expecting. Don't be an idiot about asking, and we won't have an issue, all right? And for what it's worth, I'm sorry about getting that angry so soon. He looked away and started blushing slightly. I've started to notice that my anger issues are really bad and not at all what a hero should act like, so I'm trying to get better with that. Ida smiled widely at that. I accept your apology. It is very admirable that you accept your flaws and are working to better yourself. I am sure that you will make a fine hero when we graduate. Kaken chuckled and gave him a grin. You're actually pretty all right, man. As Ida got to his seat, I heard the door open and a familiar voice said, Oh, hey, Midoriya. I looked over to see Uraraka waving at me. We're in the same class. What coincidence, huh? Oh, hey, Uraraka. I waved back. I hope that we'll get to be friends over the course of our education. If being friends is all you want to do here, then you should leave now, a voice said from the doorway. I just barely managed to see a bit of what looked like a yellow sleeping bag from the doorway. The person inside the sleeping bag got up and discarded his bag before saying, "It took you 5 seconds to quiet down." The man with dark hair and clothes walked into the room and glowered at all of us as Uraraka got to his seat. "My name is Aizawa Shota," he said, then took a sip from some sort of juice pouch. "I'll be your homeroom teacher for the next 3 years, assuming you stay in Yui." That name sounds familiar. I muttered to myself. It was obvious from the fact that I couldn't see his level and title and as being a teacher at Yui that he was a pro hero, but I couldn't remember who he was. "Your gym uniforms are on my desk," he told us. "Put them on and come outside. You guys are going to run a Quirk assessment exam," he told us when we all went outside. "But what about orientation?" Uraraka asked. Aizawa-sensei shook his head. "Teachers in the hero course have a lot more leeway than traditional schools. None of you have ever used your quirks in physical exams because of stupid laws that were put in place. Here, however, you have no restrictions." He tossed a ball to Kaken. "Bakugo, you were the top scorer in the entrance exam. What was your best score with a softball throw?" "I forget exactly, but I think it was like 67 meters. "That about right, Deku?" 67.9, I corrected. "Use your quirk," Aizawa-sensei told him. Kaken grinned and went to the circle. "You could do anything you want, just stay in the circle." Kaken threw the ball as hard as possible with what looked like a shaped charge explosion. The ball shot off like a rocket and landed far enough away that I was willing to bet Kaken had broken a kilometer. Though when Aizawa-sensei turned his phone to us, I saw that Kaken was just barely short. "That was awesome," someone said, with everyone joining in the cheer. "Do you think this is a game?" Our teacher asked harshly. "This is serious. Every single one of you are here to be pro heroes. If any of you are here for fun, you won't be soon. At the end of this physical exam, whoever has the lowest score will be expelled." I'm proud to say that, for the first time, the whole class united together all to scream, "What? You can't expel someone on the first day?" Uraraka said. "I can and I will," Aizawa-sensei scowled. "Don't like it? Don't be last. Pro heroes have to be ready for natural disasters and other horrible occurrences, so this should be nothing. First is the 50-meter dash. Azui and Ida go first. Ida naturally got a good score on account of his speed-boosting quirk, which, now that I had a good look at it, appeared to be engines inside his calves, which reminded me of the turbo hero, Ingenium. Considering his last name, was he a relative? The other girl, Azui, was able to get a decent score with her quirk, which, if I knew my mutant quirk naming conventions right, was probably called either Frog or Toad. If the slight glisten on her skin that I saw with my Hawkeye boosted sight was any indication, it was probably Frog. The rest of our classmates' runs were just as interesting. While some of them just couldn't or didn't use their quirk for the dash, like the one girl whose quirk seemed to be that she was permanently invisible, most of our classmates used their quirks in really creative ways. For example, Uraraka made her clothes lighter, and that one hot French boy from the entrance exam, Aoyama, I think his title said, used his laser base core for propulsion. Somehow, soon enough, it was Kaken's and my turn to run. Kaken and I grinned at each other as we activated our elemental auras, and I used a speed up. While I only ran, the buffs I had combined with my nearly 60 DX meant that gave me an S-rank score. Of course, Kaken scored less than a second ahead of me, thanks to his combination of fire aura and what looked like fire jets coming from the palms of his hands, as opposed to continuous explosions. I'd seen him trying to do that before, but it seemed like that was the first time he actually managed it. After that, we had the grip strength test. I didn't get the best score, but I didn't get the worst either, so it wasn't a total loss. In the next test, the standing long jump, I managed to combine air aura with another air magic skill I'd made called glide to get one of the higher distances. With the repeated side steps, I managed to another point of DX mid-test, bringing me up to 60. It wasn't much help, but I'd like to think it was what let me get the second highest score behind the short, grape-haired boy Mineta. I like big butts, and I cannot lie. LV16, Mineta Minoru. He used his sticky, yet bouncy hairball quirk to bounce himself fast enough to get a ridiculously high score. I was impressed by his creativity, though that was immediately brought down by how much of a creep he was being toward the girls in our class. I do agree that almost everyone in our class was unfairly attractive, but he really shouldn't have been making those comments about the girls. In the ball throw, I was amazed more by the fact that Aizawa-sensei's scoring app had an infinity symbol programmed into it than the fact that Uraraka managed to get it. Without gravity, the force she threw it with was certainly enough to get it into space, or as the invisible girl, Hagakure, put it, yeeted that ball into the sun. Actone baby, LV20. Hagakure Toru. I still wasn't sure how she could see if the light passed through her eyes. I asked her, but she wasn't any help at all. Where was I? Oh, right, the ball toss. Eventually, it was my turn to throw the ball. I looked down at it, then looked across the ball toss field. I hadn't used one for all at all so far in the exam, but I decided I should probably use it at least once, and I didn't see myself having any other opportunities to use it, at least not usefully. Air aura and speed up alone would be enough for the distance run and the other ones. I doubted I could think of any way to actually use All Might's quirk, or even my own powers for that matter, in them. The earth-colored glow of earth aura engulfed my body, concentrated on my arm more than the rest of my body, and I carefully drew out the power of All for One so that it didn't affect any more of my body than necessary. Apparently, I'd managed to bring the amount of One for All I used down to 95%, which actually really helped. I cocked back my arm as the glow of One for All mixed with my earth aura, and infused air mana into the ball in an attempt to make it fly farther. Limit break, I shouted, then threw the ball as hard as I could. Ball toss. A blast of displaced air unbalanced me for a moment as the ball shot through the air like a cannonball. I winced at the pain and saw that my HP took a bit of a hit, but was encouraged by the amazed reactions of my classmates. It was hard to believe that I was practically quirkless a year ago. I shoved down the pain and turned my healing hands on myself as Aizawa showed us my score. Are you okay, Midoriya? Aizawa-sensei asked me. It's hard to believe that you can use such a powerful attack without any sort of backlash. He then looked down at my hands. Also, your hand is glowing. Oh, all that. That just means I'm totally fine. I lied. Kaken scoffed, and I felt some minor impending doom. Deku's lying. That's his healing spell. Aizawa-sensei gave me an odd glare. Then his eyes started to glow red, which I could only assume was his quirk. It appeared as if the gravity around his head was somehow disrupted, and I got a system message warning me that All for One was disabled. Oh, your Eraser head, the Erasure hero. I finally realized when I saw his trademark goggles. I always thought your quirk was really interesting. I then noticed that my mana was still working fine, and only All for One was disabled, which was interesting. Just testing, he said, then blinked to deactivate his quirk. Report to the nurse's office when we're done here, Midoriya. I gulped and shook my head. No, I can still go. My quirk makes me really durable, and Healing Hands takes care of the rest. It's because of your healing abilities that I want you to report to the nurse's office, he clarified. Assuming you can use it on others, at least. UE offers a special program for people with any kind of healing power that could eventually lead to you becoming a licensed quirk healer. And I want you to talk to Recovery Girl about it, even if you end up not taking it. Right, I said. Hey, how'd your healing spell thing stay on if Aizawa-sensei's quirk disables other quirks? Kirishima asked. I gulped. Ah, well, you see, I didn't know if Aizawa-sensei knew about my magic or not, and if he did, whether or not he was okay with me telling the rest of the class. I looked at Aizawa-sensei for any sort of confirmation, and he nodded. I think it's that his quirk only stops the quirk factor from working properly, so it didn't affect my healing hands, which is more of a spell. What? You can tell them more? Aizawa-sensei told me. Literal magic, Kaken offered. Deku here somehow managed to bumble his way into discovering actual, literal magic using his quirk without realizing it. Then I figured it out from his constant muttering, and now some government officials or something know about it. Don't worry, you guys won't get dragged off by some shady suits just for knowing, but they prefer it if how to use it doesn't get into the general public just yet. We're allowed to teach you guys, though. He looked at a classmate of ours with a raven head, Tokoyami, who looked like he was trembling with excitement. Are you vibrating, bird face? Hello darkness, my old friend. LV-22. Tokoyami Fumikic. No, he somehow calmly denied, despite still vibrating. How might one, such as I learn to harness, such power as that? Kakin shrugged. I don't know how you in particular would do it, but I figured out how to take the energy that I feel when I use my quirk and use it for other things. That stuff's called mana, and you use it to do magic. Don't know how you guys with mutant quirks work, so good luck with that. It's possible to make mana a particular element by concentrating on it, but I don't know if you can do that without an affinity for it. I was planning on having them tell you that later, but it came up, so now you know. You're welcome to try using it for the last tests, but I doubt you'll figure it out, Aizawa-sensei said. True to Aizawa-sensei's words, the rest of the exams were mostly uneventful, though Tokoyami and Hagakure managed to do something with dark and light magic in the long-distance run, which I thought was strange because I couldn't make any light or dark elemental affinity with nature affinity. Maybe they're just more esoteric or something. At the end of the physical exams, Aizawa-sensei pulled up a holoscreen with what appeared to be our rankings on it. I ranked you from best to worst. Not going to go over the rankings. Mineta screamed when he saw his name at the bottom, causing Aizawa to sigh. Relax, Mineta. I was lying about expelling the lowest scorer. I'm not even allowed to do that anymore. Anymore? About half the class asked. And even if I could and was going to your performance in the repeated sidesteps combined with your below average height, making it more difficult for you to do some of the exams would have made me reconsider. It was to make sure we did our best, right? A tall, black-haired girl who I definitely saw pulling something out her body said. Pure imagination. LV-25. Yayarosa Momo. Sure, let's go with that, Aizawa-sensei said in a way that made me feel like that was an afterthought. Pick up a syllabus in the classroom. And I want to see you too, Midoriya and Bakugo. Just want to get a good idea of what you can do. Kakin and I walked out of the building when we were done. Aizawa-sensei just wanted us to write down what we could generally do that wasn't on our quirk files, then asked me to teach him Hawkeye to see if it did anything with his quirk. We just finished our first day as students of Yui, I said. Ping. Huh? What's up, Deku? Kakin asked. I just got a title for surviving the first day of Yui. I explained and checked it out. Yui student. It gives me 10% extra HP, and MP looks useful. Guess that means we're officially UE students. Deku? Hello, Bakugo and Midoriya, Ida said as he walked up to us. I must admit, I was quite surprised with your revelations, though I suppose I understand the reason why this hasn't been made public knowledge quite yet. Actually, it's not technically a secret, it's just that it's being researched more before any information about it becomes officially published, I told him. So don't worry too much if you tell someone. In fact, I'm pretty sure the press conference is going to be sometime this month. It's so cool, though, Uraraka said as she ran up. I'm actually hoping that gravity's an element, because that would be awesome. Guess I'm going to be meditating tonight. Good luck. I said, I think there might be more complex elements than the ones I can use, so gravity might be possible. It'd probably be really cool to have gravity magic, plus there are a lot of possible uses for it. We chatted for a while before parting ways. I even managed to teach Ida and Uraraka a few basic spells before they left. I decided to upgrade my mental stats after school. I really wanted to know what happened if I got either WIS or INT to 100. Not to mention, meditation was almost to level 100, which felt like it was important. My skill with meditation was up to a point where I could do it while walking and maintaining elemental aura and skills like it, though I still zoned out while doing it, so it wasn't practical to use. I still paced around in my room while meditating in the hope that that would slowly level up one of my physical stats. Plus, whenever I banged my toes on something, it didn't hurt because of my physical endurance and contributed to leveling it. Eventually, I heard a ping and felt myself realize a new thing about my meditation, an aspect of the energy flow I hadn't considered before. A skill has been created through special action. The skill Enlightenment has been created through meditation reaching max level. I grinned. Just like with Summon Basic Elemental and Summon Lesser Elemental, it looked like at least some of my skills could be upgraded if I max them out, though it seemed like anything aside from Summon Elemental would work more along the lines of giving me a new skill than upgrading an existing skill. Enlightenment Passive LV 1 EXP 0%. The goal of many great minds is to gain the power of enlightenment. This skill represents the nascent power of enlightenment, granting abilities beyond one's wildest dreams. Allows STR, VIT, DX, and INT to be trained as with WIS by meditation. Grants more uses at higher skill level. Unlike with Summon Basic Elemental, which leveled up rather fast even at higher levels, this skill felt like more than just a step up. Sure, it was just an upgrade to meditation at the moment, which was literally what Summon Lesser Elemental was, but it literally stated that it'd grant me more abilities at a higher level. I tested it out to see how it works, and noted that I could only train one attribute at a time, which I would have been disappointed with if not for the fact that it was still a ludicrous ability. All in all, I felt pretty optimistic about my budding career as a hero. UE was surprisingly mundane. I don't know what I was expecting, but after the rush of being taught by pro heroes wore off, it was actually boring. At least it was good for leveling enlightenment. Though enlightenment actually leveled rather slowly for a level 1 skill, probably because it was a prestige skill. I was really excited to see what getting that up would do. Of course, there was one class that I didn't want to miss 1 second of. Hero Basic Training. I am here, All Might shouted as he burst through the door in his Silver Age costume, causing a wave of excitement to run through the class. Today will be your first class with me, All Might. In this class, you will learn what you will need to defeat villains and save lives. But before we begin, he pointed at some panels on the wall that Observe told me held our hero costumes behind them. On cue, they slowly came out from the wall. I'm not the only one who's going to be in costume today. Suit up in your new outfits and meet me at Training Ground Beta. All Might gave his trademark brilliant smile as he watched us slow walk through the entrance to Training Ground Beta, somehow in perfect sync. They say clothes make the pros class, and you are no exception. Everyone looked so cool in their costumes. Hey, Deku, Uraraka said as she walked over to me. She had a black and pink bodysuit that looked like a futuristic spacesuit. I love your costume. It's supposed to be like an RPG character, right? Yeah, that was the idea, I said. At first, I wanted a jumpsuit with horns that looked like All Might's hair, but when I showed it to Kakin, he hit me so hard I leveled up physical endurance, though to be fair, I was almost at the next level at the time, and told me that it would be too obvious and it'd make me look like a rabbit. Upon threat of further violence, I agreed to change my outfit to something a little more original and decided to just go with the RPG theme that my quirk gave me. I had a green waistcoat over a long-sleeved white shirt, dark green pants, my sweet red shoes, white gloves, a small utility belt that I suppose was superfluous with my inventory, but still looked cool, and a green hooded cloak that I had include rabbit ears as a joke to Kakin at first, then decided I liked it and kept it. It all had light armor that didn't mess with the look or harm my mobility, but still added slightly to my defenses. The most surprising part, though, was that my request for a sword so I didn't have to waste mana on Bound Blade was accepted. Sure, I had spells that worked well with a sword, but I could also make swords, and I didn't expect them to let me have a sword on my first year. I think yours looks nice, too. I also expected that without Gamer's Mind, I would have been very flustered. Uraraka sighed. I wish I'd been more specific with my costume. This is a little embarrassing. Look at it this way. At least you're not ponytail or invisible, Kakin said with an amused grin. His costume was pretty cool, but I still think those gauntlets looked a little too bulky, even after he had them reduced a bit and include switchable sweat cartridges at my suggestion. I saw he also had the water bottle I'd suggested to keep hydrated so he could sweat more. One of them's half naked and the other's only wearing gloves and shoes. In my defense, I need bare skin for my quirk creation, Yairosa stated. Dude, I'm naked like all the time when I'm at home, Hagakure told Kakin. I noticed that her title was transparent. Not fully invisible, but harder to see than it used to be. I shrugged it off as my quirk, making it harder for me to see her title because she was supposed to be harder to see. And I got points in the entrance exam by sneaking around buck naked and messing around with the robot's innards and stuff. Moneta gave a thumbs up. Naked ladies. He drooled. Ugh. Nobody asked you. PP for brains. Kakin shouted at him. Now that you're all in costume, we're going to begin with combat training. All Might told us. Unlike the entrance exam, where you fought robots outside, today you'll all be fighting each other indoors. Now, can anyone tell me why it is important to know how to fight indoors? Almost immediately, Ida's hand shot up. While it is true that most confrontations between heroes and villains happen outdoors, the vast majority of all fights between heroes and villains are in fact inside. He was wearing really cool white armor that reminded me of Ingenium, and my observe told me was more to reduce wind resistance than defend from attacks. Exactly, young Ida. And so for your training exercise today, you will be divided into teams of 2. Those teams will then be pitted against each other, one hero team against one villain team. The villains will be hiding a fake bomb somewhere in the building, and it will be the hero's job to find it. The heroes will win if they capture both villains or touch the bomb. On the other hand, the villains win if they capture the heroes or survive to the end of the time limit. And try not to hurt each other too hard. Then he pulled out a cardboard box, and the teams will be decided by drawing lots. Why lots? Ida asked. Pros can't always choose who they're working with, so maybe it's to represent that? I offered. Exactly, young Midoriya. Now let's see who the teams are. In a freak twist of fate that further cemented my decision to no longer grind LUC because it's not that worth it, Uraraka and I, in Team A, were put against Kakin and Ida in Team D. Kakin and Ida, as the villain team, were given 5 minutes to get set up, and we were allowed to plan outside while they were in there. I sighed. What's wrong, Midoriya? Uraraka asked. I know that this might sound a little bit like bragging, but Kakin's really the only person in the class that I know for sure could win in a fight against me. I think Todoroki might be able to put up a decent fight, but Kakin knows what I can do the best, and his quirk and magic combined make him a definite threat. Plus, he's the only person who might be able to counter the plan I came up with. Uraraka grinned. Then we're just going to have to do our best. What's the plan? I nodded. First, I'm going to summon reinforcements. Don't freak out. I summoned all of my elementals, including my new fire elemental, Blaze. He wore a light brown long-sleeve shirt with thin black horizontal lines. His black pants, black shoes, and black gloves covered up the rest of his skin below his neck. He had a mane of wild, white hair with 5 wavy red ponytails, arranged in a way that made his head the center of a 5-pointed star. He also had a neck warmer/mask in the same shade of white as his hair that was pulled up over his nose. What little skin on his face that was visible was pitch black, and his scurrilous eyes glowed bright blue. He was probably the least human-looking elemental I had. Wow, what kind of spell is this? Uraraka asked as she crouched down a bit to look at Dune. Thankfully, I'd managed to get Dune to switch from a gun to some sort of military-type knife, sheathed on her sleeve in public. Sup? I'm Dune. Dune introduced herself. Halidus muttered. Rain gave her a wide, toothy grin and pulled out her sword. I'm Rain. Need something stabbed? No, Rain. Blaze sighed as he grabbed her hand and lowered the sword she was brandishing for her. Name's Blaze. Uraraka laughed, causing Rain to give a toothy grin and blush a little. These are my elementals, I said. They're able to control the elements. My plan is to use a certain spell. I have to sneak into the building. I bit my lip. Unfortunately, the best way to use it is to have you act as a distraction. Is that okay? She nodded. It's totally okay. I'm guessing there's technical stuff at work? Yeah. The spell Illusion Barrier takes me and anything I include into a sort of pocket dimension, and while I know how to exclude my elementals, I don't think I can put you in and not me. I said it's fine. Uraraka beamed. That's super cool, though. So you can just disappear, Well? That's how to be so useful. Start. All Might's voice said from our earpieces. I'm pulling us in. I warned. Illusion Barrier. Nothing seemed to change, but I knew it worked. Right, we should probably split up so we can cover more ground. Objects like the bomb will still be where they were when I used the spell, but Kakin and Ida aren't in the barrier. I saw them on my map in the northern part of the building, but the map doesn't show elevation, so we need to check each floor. Let's go. Bakugo sighed. This was going to be a nightmare. I am loath to act on the side of the villains, even if it's just for practice, but if I must, then I shall, Ingenium Jr. said. Okay, First off, glasses. You're going to have to think like a villain sometimes if you want to get the jump on the real villains, Bakugo said. Second off, can you please let me think? Ah, yes. Is Midoriya likely to give us trouble? Bakugo gave a deeper sigh. More like he's going to appear out of thin air on top of the bomb if I don't figure out a counter to what I'm pretty sure is Dimensional F. Deku's got a spell called Illusion Barrier that lets him go to some other dimension of total BS or something where everything's the same, but nobody's there. Even through his helmet, Bakugo could see Glasses wince. That sounds like it'll be difficult to counter. I will defer to your lead. Right, first off this, Bakugo made a fireball, using it to summon Pyra. Like Deku's elementals, Pyra seemed to have ranked up, causing her to look older and gain a small bump on her forehead for some reason. This is Pyra. She's made of fire. Deal with it. Hello, Pyra said with a small wave. I'm a fire elemental. If I know Deku like I know Deku, and I know Deku, then Round Face is going to pop out of nowhere sometime soon with at least one of Deku's 4 elementals to distract us. By the way, Deku has 4 Pyras of various elements. Deal with it. While that happens, Deku will make his way over to the bomb in his nonsense barrier and just pop back in on top of it. I want you and Pyra to hold off Round Face and the elementals while I try to enact Operation Punch Deku in the face from another dimension, or OpFad for short. That sound good? Glasses nodded. It does, though I'd like to know what OpFad entails if you don't mind me asking. Step 1 is to make some kind of sensory spell that can hopefully be used to sense Dimensional F. I've already made a spell that I think can do that, but I have to concentrate on it, and it's a beach on my mana. Step 2 is to try using it on Deku while he's entering or exiting BS land. Step 3, try to use that data to sense where Deku is in BS land, and then cause my fist to enter BS land with magic. There are a lot of ifs in that plan. Glasses sounded a little doubtful. Bakugo glared at him. You got a better plan? On the other hand, this is a training exercise. Why exactly do you think your spell will sense Midoriya's illusion barrier? Because I use it on Round Face and felt something when she used her quirk that wasn't magic, which I'm assuming was her gravity thingy, which according to Einstein is a type of dimensional thingy. I do not believe those were his exact words, but that sound about right. Then I got Deku to use his inventory and felt a similar but different feeling, which pretty much confirms its F detection. I literally cannot argue with that logic. Now shut up so I can detect it. Bakugo leaned on the bomb so he could close his eyes and reach out with his F detection. It needed him to spread out a thin layer of mana over the area he wanted to detect, which meant that he wouldn't be able to use it over too large of an area if he wanted to do it for a while. Thankfully, Pyra had given him the general direction of Deku's and Round Face's heat signatures, so he was able to find the 2 relatively easily, plus all 4 of Deku's elementals. Just a few moments after he got set up, All Might announced that the heroes could start, causing Deku to drag them all into BS land. Bakugo definitely felt something when they screwed off, but he felt like he'd need to feel an exit to get any concrete idea. Still, he definitely felt just the lightest bit of a person-shaped spatial disturbance, or whatever the hell where the heroes were. He was able to follow one of the signals that he thought might have been Round Face until it made its way to the room with the bomb, convening with some other, shorter, human-shaped disturbances. Get ready, Bakugo warned, then concentrated harder on the signal. He was just in time to catch Round Face and the elementals getting dumped out of BS land, which gave Bakugo a surprising degree of insight on how Illusion Barrier worked. He felt BS land change when Round Face was spat out, then felt it change back a few moments later when Deku presumably recast the spell. It seemed like there was some sort of dimensional barrier or whatever that was already there, and Deku called on a part of it to use his illusion barrier, which Bakugo figured made sense of what Deku was muttering about when he was talking about his spell. But with that knowledge, Bakugo figured he could maybe punch Deku. He grinned as he felt Deku's signature approaching. Then Blast rushed at it when it jumped toward the bomb. Die. The plan seemed to be going off without a hitch. Uraraka found the bomb quickly enough and called me to bring my elementals over. As they got into position, I found a spot that was out of the way enough that the villain team wouldn't notice me blink into existence for a moment, but close enough that I could get over to the bomb quickly and not keep Uraraka waiting for too long. I undid the illusion barrier for a moment before pulling myself and only myself back in. I'd had a lot of practice with exiting and re-entering illusion barrier whenever I was switching between empty and skeletons, so it took less than a second. I ran toward the bomb as fast as I could, using air aura and speed up to get there faster. Within a few seconds, I saw and jumped at the fake bomb, aiming to land on top of it, so I could just appear there and win. It looked like I was about to win. Then Kakin faded into existence in front of me, screaming die. He punched me on the jaw, throwing me back. I was stunned, but more from the shock of Kakin appearing out of nowhere in an area I never expected him to than from pain. You thought you could escape fighting me by off to BS land, Deku? Kakin smirked at me. F that noise. How? I asked. I noted that I could see Ida and Pyra fighting my team as I got up. Did the skill fail? Hell yeah, it did. His grin widened, and he pointed at himself. And I was the one who made it fail. I'm gonna stab you, I heard Rain say gleefully. I immediately turned to see Rain brandishing her sword at Ida. No maiming, Rain, I shouted frantically. But he tried to kick the pretty lady. She retorted. No, I said like I was telling a little kid not to draw on the walls. I turned back to Kakin. Sorry, didn't want Rain to kill Ida. He shrugged. That's fair. Now hit me with your best. He cut himself off by using his gauntlets to block the flat of my sword. Kakin being Kakin, this only served to make him look extremely happy. After a quick test showing that trying to recast Illusion Barrier was futile, I used Air Aura to strike at him with a quick flurry of blows. Even though he wasn't as fast as me, Kakin was fast enough that he could use both gauntlets to block my strikes. Of course, my plan wasn't to hit him with a sword. Instead, I kept his attention on my sword as I got out the capture tape that All Might gave us. I managed to make a loop with the tape with my hand, and then gave Kakin a particularly hard swipe. When he blocked, I tried to catch his hands in the loop, which would have disqualified him. Unfortunately, he incinerated the tape before it even touched him and then backhanded me, knocking me back. I tried to jump over Kakin, but he rushed up at me and punched at me again, though this time I jumped away, landing on the side of a pillar. I pushed off of the pillar with 8% one for all, aiming to get over Kakin. Unfortunately, he just flew up to me, causing me to jump up to the ceiling and kick off away from Kakin. This time, I threw an air shot at him, blasting him back and me toward the bomb. For good measure, I threw a bind at him, which I really should have done earlier. Without Kakin to deal with, I realized that maybe I might be falling hard enough to damage the bomb, so I braked with air mana. While it didn't stop me completely, I slowed down enough that I touched down on the bomb relatively lightly. Hero team wins, All Might announced. After the battle ended, All Might had us meet up in a room where the rest of the class had watched our fight for a review of our fight. Now, All Might said, who could tell me who the MVP if this round was? Yaoyorozu raised her hand. Surely it's Midoriya, right? He came up with a plan, and it would have gone without a hitch if the matchups had gone any differently. I felt my cheeks heating up a bit. No, surely the others deserve some of the credit too. Kakin slapped me upside the head. You won, idiot. Yeah, but you three and the elementals also. I won't deny that everyone contributed. Young Midoriya. However, you most certainly deserve the spot of MVP. My eyes watered a bit. Thanks, everyone. And unless there are any more questions, let us begin with the second match. All Might loudly declared. I perked up at that. I was really excited to see everyone's quirks in a fight. After our review was over, and I answered a few questions about my elementals, All Might announced that the next matchup would have for the hero team, Shoji Mizo, the tall guy with 6 arms, and Todoroki Shoto, a boy with white and red hair who had some sort of weird, flexible ice-like armor over the entire half of his body that had the red hair, covering a rather bad burn scar on the left side of his face as well. For the villains, there was Hagakure, who I noticed had leveled up twice, and a guy named Ojiro Mashireo, whose costume looked a lot like a karate GI. Everybody was kung fu fighting. LV-29, Ojiro Mashireo. It looked like he was a martial artist, so I was a little excited to see how that worked with his tail quirk, or magic in general for that matter. I watched the screen showing the villains getting ready. Just as I thought, Hagakure's title completely disappeared when she took her gloves and shoes off. When the villains' prep time was up, Shoji spread out his arms, turning the hands on all but the bottom pair into ears, which I assumed was him using some sort of echolocation to find the villains. After a few seconds, one of the ears on his arms turned into a mouth and said something to Todoroki. Todoroki touched the wall with his right hand, causing frost to form all over it and Shoji to move out of the building. The path to isolation. LV-35. Todoroki Shoto. Ice spread from Todoroki's right hand and leg, but I noted that it was only his right hand and leg, with his left side doing nothing. That seemed to be the nature of his quirk, half cold, half hot. Interestingly enough, Observe told me that his quirk was actually having two separate quirks on the two halves of his body, cold on his right and hot on his left, which was interesting. The ice generated by his quirk spread to cover the entire building, with enough control that the bomb was barely frozen and Hagakure and Ojiro only had their feet frozen to the ground. With the ice from cold like that, I couldn't wait to see him use hot in battle. Holy oh no, that guy's powerful, Kakin muttered as he warmed us up from the cold we could feel even from that far away. I blinked at that. Kakin would never have said that a year ago. I pointed at the part of the screen that showed the villain team, which was showing a lot more light than it had before. I don't think Hagakure's done yet. I said. I was only barely able to make out a humanoid shape standing where Hagakure was, glowing like the sun. And like the light of the sun, she seemed to be heating up her surroundings, creating massive amounts of steam and melting the ice around her. The ice melt was enough to free Ojiro. However, it seemed that using that spell drained her because after she stopped, I saw the outline of her hands and knees in one of the puddles she'd made from the melted ice. Ojiro walked over to her and said something to her, probably asking her if she was okay. While I couldn't tell if Hagakure said anything due to the lack of audio, I assumed she told him to pick her up or something because Ojiro started awkwardly touching the air roughly where Hagakure was, then grabbed onto something invisible and pulled it up. When he was done, he blushed and appeared to apologize profusely, likely responding to something Hagakure said. Hagakure recovered enough to not have to lean on Ojiro, just in time to vanish before Todoroki showed up. Todoroki blinked when he saw the mostly thawed and waterlogged room, then said something to Ojiro. After a small conversation, they both entered fighting stances. Midoriya, are you the one making that noise? Azui asked me. I noticed that, in my excitement to see my classmates use their quirks on each other, I was making a bit of a noise. No. I made a conscious effort to not make that noise anymore. Let's watch the fight. Todoroki swiped his right hand at Ojiro, causing a series of icicles to freeze in a line approaching him. Ojiro spun, slapping the ice with a glowing tail. The ice was stopped, either from Ojiro hitting the ice or, more likely, the magic he used in the attack. Todoroki shot off another ice wall at Ojiro, causing him to jump into the air and land on the first wall of ice, then jump along it to drop kick him. Todoroki grabbed Ojiro's foot with the armor on his left arm, then point-blank froze Ojiro in a pillar of ice. I winced in sympathy. That looked unpleasant. Of course, in the confusion, Todoroki didn't seem to notice a roll of the capture tape All Might gave to both teams float out of a hidden pocket on one of Hagakure's gloves and approach him. When Todoroki froze Ojiro, his arms were close together enough that Hagakure was able to quickly tape his arms together, capturing him. Young Todoroki has been captured, All Might announced on his microphone. He flipped a few switches on the microphone and said, "Clever thinking, young Hagakure. Now, I would prefer young Mashireo to not be frozen for too much longer. So if you cannot free him again, I will be forced to disqualify him and have young Todoroki use the other half of his quirk to warm him up. Can you recreate what you did earlier?" Todoroki backed up a bit, letting Hagakure work her magic. A hand-shaped red glow appeared on the ice Mashireo was in, causing it to melt faster than I would have thought she'd be able to. Once Mashireo was free, he thanked Hagakure and started talking to her about something while doing some exercises to warm up. Hagakure shook off the water that had melted on her feet and hid her tape in some ice, so she could hide invisibly. After a couple moments, an eye and ear on Shoji's arms discreetly poked out from behind a corner, surveying the room. An extending third arm with an eye on it snaked up to the ceiling, slowly inching its way over to the bomb. When he was about halfway to the bomb, Mashareo looked up and used his tail to launch himself towards Shoji, careful of the ice, and Shoji's arm to speed up, before either of them could reach their destination. However, Shoji randomly recoiled as if he was punched in the stomach by an invisible fist, causing his extended arm to retract. Mashareo tossed his tape at Shoji, rightly guessing that Hagakure was there and able to capture Shoji. Villain team wins, All Might announced. Now, who can tell me the MVP of this round? All Might asked after they came back. I raised a hand, almost done from healing Mashareo from a minor hypothermia from Todoroki and sunburn from Hagakure. Luckily, however, Hagakure seemed to have warmed him up slowly enough that he didn't have shock. Is it Hagakure? I asked. Exactly right. Young Midoriya. All Might confirmed. Now, at the beginning, it looked like Todoroki would be the MVP with how he would have incapacitated both villains with no fight had young Hagakure not utilized such an impressive special move. Yeah, that was a pretty cool trick. A blonde guy named Kaminari who had an electricity base quirk said. Todoroki was all like, oh, let's see how you like all this ice. And you were all like, screw that. Eat his solar flare. Hagakure pumped her fists. Yeah, it was awesome. I was trying to figure out what to do, so then I remembered that sunlight melts ice, and I have light magic, so I figured I could melt the ice. Hey, do you mind if I call that move solar flare? Kaminari grinned. Yeah, that's awesome. All Might cleared his throat. As I was saying, young Hagakure solar flare seemed to be an example of either great improvisational skill or excellent planning. In addition, she were able to incapacitate both of the members of the hero team by taking advantage of her quirk and her teammates' distractions. Therefore, the MVP of this round is most definitely young Hagakure. Now, unless there's anything else any of you wish to discuss, we shall continue on to the next round. The rest of the matches were, honestly, not quite as exciting as the first two. Don't get me wrong, it was great seeing the rest of my classmates' quirks in action, but I guess I was just spoiled by Todoroki's ice and Hagakure's solar flare and invisible sneak attacks. Yairza looked like she was going to give an interesting fight at first, especially with the surprisingly advanced level of magic she showed despite having only a day to work on it. But she was unfortunately hampered by having Mineta as a partner, who spent most of the time ogling her revealing costume. It was a shame. Their quirks put together seemed like they could be very useful. After every match was finished, All Might congratulated everyone on how we didn't have any major injuries and the fact that I was able to heal off the minor injuries before rushing off, which only I and Kakin knew was because of his time limit. After he was done, I reminded Mashareo to talk to Recovery Girl, just in case I missed something before walking her office with him. On the way, we chatted about what little I knew about martial arts compared to him and what I knew about magic. We gave each other some pointers before we reached the nurse's office. After Recovery Girl gave Mashareo a small checkup and a clean bill of health, I gave her the paperwork she'd given me the day before for my medical training, accepted a bit of homework for me to start out on, then shoo me back off to class. When I exited, I saw that Mashareo was waiting for me. Why are you still here? I asked. He gave me a small smile. We're going to the same place anyway. So what was it you were saying about sensory enhancement? Kakin, it's literally called F detection, I said while we walked home after school. You invented a new spell that involves infusing unexpected magic into the fabric of reality itself and called it detection. Jealous? Kakin gave me a grin. I'd honestly be lying if I said I wasn't. I admitted, but my point is that you called it F detection, and my quirk recognizes it as being named F detection. Cool. So what else does your quirk say about it? I sighed. It says that while there are forms of unexpected magic that can be dimensional F, it's more likely to be something called tertiary elements, which I suppose confirms my theory about esoteric elements. It also says that it can detect natural distortions in reality, which I guess might be that BS land that you told me about. It's actually pretty interesting, though unfortunately I doubt I'll be able to test out those tertiary elements for a while. Why is that? Assuming the 4 elements I have are considered primary elements, and I get a skill that grants me new elements every WIS benchmark, Then I need 150 WIS for tertiary elements, I explained. Sure, I'm almost to 100, but my progress slows down the higher my stats get. Kakin's head whipped around to stare at me. Back up. You already have stats near 100? Only WIS, unfortunately. I've been focusing on WIS a bit more than the other stats because I want to know if I do get secondary elements for getting it over 100. Meh, Kakin said. So what do you want to do with F detection? Actually, I want to see what the difference between you and me using illusion barrier is, I said. Not here, obviously, but when we get to your house. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I know how to do that now. Why do you want to see me do it? I think that my illusion barrier might have a few modifications for my quirk. Obviously, you don't have my quirk, so now that you can use it too, we can find out. Plus, now that I have F detection, I can sense how illusion barrier works. You just want to see someone use illusion barrier, don't ya? Kakin asked. Maybe. He shrugged, not judging. When we reached Kakin's house, we greeted his mom and moved to his room, which had at some point in the last few months turned into something of a magic laboratory, or at least a small testing ground. It had already been explosion-proofed, fire-proofed, and sound-proof from how he occasionally activated his quirk in his sleep, so we didn't even have to do too much work to get it ready. While illusion barrier wasn't dangerous or anything, it was pretty much tradition at this point that any time we came together to work on magic, it was either on the beach or in Kakin's room. I'm ready, I said as I watched him with F detection active. Using it, he said before reaching out to BS land, with his magic, creating a spatial distortion that I could feel centered around his body. He disappeared into his own illusion barrier. In a few moments of trying later, I managed to learn a skill called Space Invader that took me into the barrier with Kakin. Sup, Deku? What now? Now that we know you can use illusion barrier, the next step is to see if you can add the skeletons to the barrier, I said. Assuming you can, I'd like to know if yours will spawn a boss if we kill enough of them. Right, turning it off. I felt Kakin let go of the barrier, ejecting us back into reality. Almost instantly, he cast the new barrier, making the necessary alterations to the spell to theoretically enable the skeletons. As with before, I didn't accompany Kakin, but instead used Space Invader to give it more EXP. Actual hell? I caught the latter half of Kakin's curse, then followed his gaze out the window to see what he was looking out. The sky had turned red with clouds of black smoke, and the trees and grass looked like they'd been set on fire. Rain told me that there was no water nearby, while Dune made note of molten lava where the water used to be. As we watched, small, yet angry-looking wisps of fire drifted off of the ground. Jump in the fire. LV-11. Fire Wisp. I think you might not be able to make skeletons, Kakin, I said. Oh, you think, Deku? Kakin asked. No, I thought these were nonsense fire fairy bones. So maybe the monster type changes from person to person. I hypothesized. By the way, they're called fire wisps, and the lowest leveled ones are 11. Maybe we should try killing a few now to see what boss spawns? Kakin sighed. Fine. Now how do you suggest I do that? I don't think punching will work, and fire's probably an even dumber idea. I shrugged. Try non-elemental magic? We left Kakin's house and confirmed that the wisps were susceptible to magic. Then we split up to kill more wisps. I remembered how useful Tornado Bomb was on my skeletons, so I decided to try it out on the wisps. Thankfully, they were snuffed out instead of lighting my bomb on fire, giving me a level up. After I used a second Tornado Bomb, the last embers of the wisps stayed in the air before streaking off in Kakin's direction. I internally cursed and rushed toward Kakin as fast as I could. I just managed to make it in time to see a massive wisp floating in front of Kakin. Fight fire with fire. LV-40. Inferno Wisp. Kakin, I shouted as I activated Water Aura and shot a water gun at the Inferno Wisp to push it back, which seemed to deal bonus damage from the elemental weakness. Kakin took the hint and exploded himself back to me. That's a giant wisp, he said. It's called Inferno Wisp, and it's level 40. The Inferno Wisp charged us, and we rolled out of the way of the massive fire monster. The ground was seared from its touch. How do we fight something that's level 40? I shrugged. You're almost 40, and my stats are probably around that range. Its title says Fight Fire with Fire, though, so maybe you should hit it with some explosions? Yeah, but what if I'm the fire and not the fire? Can you at least hold it off for a bit? I asked. Kakin scoffed. Can I? He made a lash out of mana and started whipping the wisp with it while I started charging up a water version of Spiral Mana Ball. I watched with bated breath as Kakin whipped the fireball and dodged out of the way whenever it rammed or shot at him, ready to intervene if it looked like he needed it. My newly christened Whirlpool Bomb reached minimum charge, so I shouted now. Kakin shot straight up with his quirk to give me a straight shot. I let it charge just a bit more before taking a few steps forward and threw the bomb at the Inferno Wisp. A whirlpool condensed from my water magic, thrashing the boss monster around. Unfortunately, the Inferno Wisp just barely survived my attack. I shot a few more water guns at it, while Kakin fired off mana bolts from where he'd landed. Between the two of us, we managed to kill the boss before it managed to attack us. That was stressful, Kakin griped as he wiped some sweat from his forehead. He walked over to where the wisp had died and picked up a scroll that had appeared when it died. I can't read this, he said after opening it. Didn't you say you learned a spell from yours? Actually, I think that it might have been a part of my quirk, I said. So we still don't know what happens when your quirk doesn't mess up the illusion barrier, he said as he held the scroll out to me. I guess so. I took the scroll from him. Yeah, I can use my quirk on this. Is it okay with you if I do it? Sure, but I want to know whatever you get from it if it's any good. I would have done that anyway, Kakin, I answered, then used my quirk on the scroll, absorbing it like the last skill book. Fire Dash. I demonstrated the skill, coating myself in fire magic that propelled me away from him. Just what it sounds like, a fire spell that coats you in fire and propels you in whatever direction you want. It'd probably work well with your quirk. Cool. You gonna write that down for me? Sure. Let's just get back to your... I looked around. All of the buildings were scorched enough that I couldn't tell exactly where we were. Kakin, where's your house? I asked. Oh no. So, this was the end of part 1 of this series. Stay tuned for next part of this series, and if you like this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Until next time.